Warhammer x LOTM, The Black Emperor by author Jiao Chao Mo. Chapter 738-754. Chapter 738, 5th release, requesting monthly tickets and subscriptions. 2 warbands are actually this swift. Forge World, Supreme Valia. Members of the Council of Sages gathered in the Forge Temple, as a series of blinding red 0s and 1s scrolled through their cognitive space. First Expeditionary Fleet annihilated. Agri World Narindi has fallen. News of the total collapse of the war across 13 star systems erupted one after another within 25 seconds. The modified brains of the sages could not help but fall into a state of paralysis. The 14th message pierced the deathly silence of the hall. Hoth Albion has fallen. This message was particularly eye-searing. Hoth Albion symbolized the glorious achievement of Supreme Valia's victory over the Hydronox Cabal during a long war. Since then, they would never again bow their heads to any power. Cold reality shattered their illusory thoughts. How can the enemy be so fast? Chief Sage Unai 9 raised the question. Supreme Valia had not been at a disadvantage during the tug of war against Glia over the past 2 years. Why would the situation deteriorate so rapidly in less than 4 weeks? The force calling itself the Imperium of Man has dispatched their outstanding commander, Nimrod, leading his Order Shadows Legion to launch a swift offensive, the envoy tech priest said in a level tone, relaying intelligence he had obtained through communication with the Mars envoy. Chief Sage Unai 9 looked at the projection of the Dominus Sage. How much longer can we hold out? The Dominus Sage, who managed military affairs, stared at the illusory holographic image for 16 seconds before the mechanical tentacles behind him rose, outlining 2 cyan-red defensive lines on the north and south sides of the image. The Reavers, Titan Legion has been fully deployed to support the Skitarii Rangers. The newly established front is holding back the Order Shadows attack. The Dark Fire, Titan Legion on the southern side and the Morning Star, Titan Legion on the northern side have also been blocked. It is estimated that the southern front can hold for 3 weeks, while the northern front can only hold for 1 week. Sensing the surge of doubt in the cognitive space, the Dominus Sage further explained why the northern front was shorter than the southern one. Glia has raised their crown. The tripodal walking mechs of the Order Shadows also pose a threat to our god machines. 1 week is the most optimistic estimate. The Dominus Sage gazed at the pitch blackness embedded in the heartland. In all probability, we will not have that much time. The one who broke into the heartland of Hoth Albion is Nimrod and his guard. If he launches an attack on either side, he will tear through our defensive lines from the flank and rear. Everyone. The envoy tech priest suddenly sent out a thought pulse. I have obtained unverified intelligence that the Order Shadows is their largest legion, and he has only deployed 2 of its 12 warbands. The one in the north with the tripodal mechs is the 2nd battle group, and the one in the south is the 10th battle group. The cognitive space fell into a deathly silence, as the scrolling 0s and 1s froze as if stuck in a cognitive mire. After a long 6 seconds, Chief Sage Unai 9 repeated. 2 warbands. 2 warbands were actually so swift and unstoppable. After another 10 seconds of silence, we shall reconcile with the Empire and accept the jurisdiction of Mars. A wise choice. At the same time, Hoth Albion. Nimrod stepped into the only forged temple on this world. Arsena Dun followed by his side. He led the detectives in accessing all the planetary log documents. After the Primarch attendant aggregated and analyzed all the information, he spoke to report. My lord, this temple was originally the site where the Hydronox Cabal held their round-table meetings. To commemorate their victory, Supreme Valia built a forged temple here. According to the logs, an ancient statue stood within the round-table meeting site, and every round-table meeting was held beneath that statue. Nimrod nodded and stepped forward, his obsidian eyes taking in the scene within the temple. The furnace fire flickered and died, and incense burners lay overturned on the ground. Nimrod's gaze narrowed, focusing on the gear in the center. The outer red gear meshed with the inner cyan gear. As they rotated, a gray sphere was embedded in the center where the large red and cyan gears overlapped. Thump, thump, thump. In the Primarch's vision, it expanded and contracted incessantly like a heart. In the sight of the Mentor of Disorder, gray-black lines of rules were intricately entangled. Nimrod walked forward, the snow-haired Primarch attendant following closely behind him. He gazed at the gears and noticed that the material of the stone ball was clearly different from the metal gears. The stone ball should have been removed from the ancient statue to reconstruct the gears. Besides commemorating the victory, there seems to be. As he spoke, the cyan-red gears rotated rapidly, emitting a dull thumping sound. Bang! Arsena's face turned pale. He instantly pushed his Thelema mindset from the first layer to the third layer to calm the massive shadow looming over him. The mentor of disorders, spirituality surged. He took one step and crossed dozens of meters, arriving before the gears. Black mist floated in the palm of his right hand. He raised his arm and reached out, grabbing the vibrating stone ball. Whoosh! The stone ball vanished into thin air. Rumble! The interlocking cyan and red gears seemed to lose their fulcrum and collapsed with a roar. Nimrod nodded with a smile. The third fragment of Bellicor's relic was in hand. The heart of Bellicor. Arsena, with his snow-white hair, looked relieved. He gazed at the gears and the vanished stone ball, lost in thought. A moment later, they boarded a Stormbird and returned to the Aquila shuttle. Through the small observation window, Nimrod gazed at the burning land, where a massive army of servitors was digging Titan drop pods out of impact craters. Within his sight, there were also swarms of ships with excavators, cranes, and transport vehicles, recovering Titans. This was a long project involving countless manpower allocations, logistics scheduling, and key technologies known only to tech priests. The Stormbird slowly landed on the flight deck. Just as Nimrod was about to give the order to rendezvous with the second battle group and crush the northern enemy lines, the communication beat in Arsena's ear buzzed. After listening to the report, the Primarch attendant immediately reported, "My lord, Supreme Valia has surrendered. They request to sign an agreement with Mars." The corners of Nimrod's mouth curled up. "Order the fleet to set sail. Destination, Supreme Valia." He wanted to arrive at Supreme Valia ahead of the Mars envoy tech priest to subdue the Forge world. "I can't work for nothing and let others take the credit. Besides, Supreme Valia hasn't truly submitted to Mars." Nimrod remembered that although Supreme Valia joined the Empire, the unique liquid gas mixture extracted from the highly corrosive seawater of the Forge world was used to create industrial alloys with higher strength, strong corrosion resistance, and excellent plasma performance, which could be used to manufacture war machines for extreme environments. This had caught Mars' attention. Mars then funded Supreme Valia to vigorously expand its production lines, leading it into a new period of prosperity. But Supreme Valia still guarded its own secrets closely, and its ties with Mars were not tight. "Since Mars doesn't have the ability to subdue Supreme Valia, I will take the initiative." While Nimrod was thinking, he returned to the Primarch's office and then stepped into the fourth layer of the Nation of Disorder. He extended his spirituality, touching the spiritual orbs of Wilshire and Ramsey. The message he wanted to convey surfaced in Nimrod's mind and was transmitted to the orbs through a subtle connection. Supreme Valia has surrendered, cease the attack. Chapter 739, 5 updates, requesting monthly tickets and subscriptions, former enemies, controlling the Iron Halo together with me. Tempestus Segmentum, Iron Halo, Talos System. Talos Prime Surface, District C5. 28 tripodal walkers marched in formation under a dim yellow light similar to that of Gardinal. Everyone in the formation looked remarkably similar, with sparse gray hair, pale skin, and dim yellow eyes. This was a manifestation of their shared caste origin from Gardinal, the result of countless generations of genetic iteration. But they were unlike their caste ancestors, whose bodies were dissected and placed in mortuaries. After submitting to the Lord, the average theoretical lifespan of the sixth-generation Walker pilots had already reached 39 years. Their faces were filled with a vibrant, surging will to fight. They were the Lord's new warrior nobility. They no longer lived in cramped tenement buildings like their fathers. The Gardinal system was replanned under the command of the Lord of Light, with the 10 planets besides the main star clearly defined. Planet IV was built around the tripodal walkers. The few originally developed factories were converted into civilian use, while new factories were built for manufacturing and assembly. In the new hive cities modeled after Exemplar City, the pilots became the new masters of the nest towers. The lead captain inspected the series of runes emerging from the cogitator array and shouted, 10 o'clock, contact. Warhound Titans, plasma shields. The Gardinal Type 2 tripodal walker was 16.5% larger than the previous Warhound Titan model. The expanded space allowed for a Nemesis-class reactor, providing enough energy for the tripodal walker to be equipped with a Knight's plasma shield. Compared to the era of the High Lords, where pilots were treated as consumables, and the Type 1 experimental walkers built for the Randan War, they finally gained defense. Although the plasma shields could not withstand the plasma beam cannons of the Warlord Titans of the Reavers Legion, their Warhound-class Titans were not equipped with such terrifying weapons. Thump, thump, thump. The left foot of the rear two legs hit the ground, while the other two legs turned under the control of touch-sensitive gloves. Boom, boom, boom. Piercing beams of light shot out from between the mountains of the mine. The Titans of the Reavers Legion were lying in wait along the flanks of the main road of the C5 Forge City, launching an ambush. The three walkers at the front left of the formation had their black, crab-like hulls sliced open by the brilliant beams, falling apart like an unglued sandwich. The six following walkers shook violently from the shockwaves the moment they finished their turn. Three giant mechanical legs supported the steel bodies like iron pillars. Rumble. Amidst the dull roar, two walkers raised their plasma shields. Amidst continuous explosions, yellow smoke filled the air. The tripodal walkers lowered their bodies to withstand the impact of dozens of turbo lasers, their three giant steel feet leaving claw-like gashes on the rocky road. 19 tripodal walkers completed their turn in a synchronized march, their arms spinning rapidly as energy beams shot out. The dazzling beams, like jets or awls, sliced through the blue and red steel hulls. Moments later, the tripodal walker formation destroyed 6 Warhound Titans. Just as the lead captain was about to lead the team forward to attack Forge City C5, the Vox system suddenly rang. He saw the rune was from the Lord of Light and immediately picked up. "Lord, what are your orders?" "Supreme Valia has surrendered, cease fire." Wilshire's voice was as stirring as ever. At the same time, outside Talos's largest forge city, the final moment of the brutal decisive battle between the Morning Star and the Reavers Warlord Titans was underway. Among the countless scattered remains of burning steel, 14 green god machines formed a circular line, pouring a dense barrage of fire onto 2 blue and cyan enemy machines. The 2 blue Reavers hissed with blue beams that pierced the void shields of the green Morning Stars, cutting through meters of adamantium armor and damaging the power systems of the right arm and left leg. Boom! A Warlord Titan lost its balance, its giant steel foot crashing into the rocky ground. The screeching of brakes suddenly rang out as the wheels of hundreds of transport trucks sparked. Servitors jolted violently in their seats, pressing yellow buttons hard, steel chains shot out, and mechanical claws extended. The task of the towing servitors was to recover the god machines to minimize losses as much as possible. Compared to Dark Fire, the Crown of Glea covering the surface of Talos deployed more vehicles and had stronger repair capabilities, keeping Titan losses far lower than their allies. The 2 Reavers, shrouded in white steam, had large sections of their blue and cyan steel hulls, made of Supreme Valia alloy, incinerated into a mass of scrap. The 2 god machines were beaten until they swayed incessantly, their blue beams sliding askew across the ground, cutting arc-shaped craters. Suddenly, a blue beam vibrated and rose, sweeping across the abdomen of a green god machine. The temperature of the plasma reactor climbed rapidly, and the steel body turned into a cage of fire. A blinding pillar of light soared into the sky. Rumble! The exploding ball of fire slammed against the shimmering void shield. Plasma fire rained down, and a dead silence fell within the 13 green Morning Stars. A desolate chill spread, and the flames of vengeance burned. Attack! The High Captain took heavy steps, the earth trembling as the volcano cannon aimed at the Forge City. Dazzling light rose from the smoke-filled muzzles. Just as the Forge City was about to be leveled and tens of millions of dead slaves were about to be incinerated, the High Captain's Vox system buzzed. The high-priority communication level of the Order Shadows chapter master caused the message to scroll across the screen immediately. Supreme Valia has surrendered, please cease fire. 10 standard days later, Forge World, Supreme Valia, Forge Temple. Chief Sage UNAI 9's Vox system spoke to Nimrod, steady and with a hint of warmth. Thank you for delivering the message in time. 5 Forge cities were saved from destruction, and over 100 million lives survived. Nimrod, with a banner hanging from his left shoulder, keenly sensed the change in the sages in blue and red robes across the long table. That is good news. He nodded with a smile. The Morning Star, Titan Legion and the Dark Fire, Titan Legion had received the message in time and ceased their attack. Unlike in his memories, where disastrous consequences occurred, Supreme Valia did not harbor deep-seated hatred. This was a good start to winning over Supreme Valia. The Mentor of Disorder spoke in a low voice, spirituality surging forth. As the Red Priest, uniqueness grew warmer. I will fully support Supreme Valia in expanding production lines and extracting compounds from the corrosive seawater. I will also fight for you to retain 3 more systems. Nimrod remembered that after Supreme Valia yielded, Mars seized most of the systems controlled by Supreme Valia. A massive amount of 0s and 1s filled the thought space of Supreme Valia as the sages silently exchanged views. Mars demands that we hand over control of at least 12 systems. The Reavers, Titan Legion has lost more than half its strength, we have no room for negotiation. The Envoy Tech Priest's words prompted UNAI 9 to make a decision. I am willing to sign a covenant with you. 5 days later, as the bell of the Omniscia struck 12 times, Nimrod walked into the incense-filled Forge Temple. He smiled as he walked up to the Chief Forgemaster and, amidst the chanting led by the Hierophant Sage, signed his name. As Nimrod stood side by side with UNAI 9, he extended an invitation to the Chief Forgemaster of Glea. Degos, we are allies witnessed by the holy glory of the Omniscia. We should cooperate fully. Degoes 12 was silent for a few seconds. Without Nimrod, the war would not have ended so quickly. With the rapid recovery of the agri-world Nurindi, Glea's losses were significantly reduced. After logical analysis, Degoes 12 accepted the invitation and walked to Nimrod's left. Nimrod smiled at Degoes 12 and UNAI 9 on either side of him. A good start. Former enemies, without irreconcilable and deep-seated hatred, will be able to cooperate fully during the great birthday celebration and control the Iron Halo together with me. After Nimrod left the Forge Temple with Arsenadun and the Aquilus shuttle took off, the silver-haired Primarch attendant began his report. My lord, the Emperor is holding a triumph for you on Terra to celebrate the pacification of the Iron Halo. Warband 740. 5 updates, asking for monthly tickets and subscriptions, controlling 4 major Forge worlds and 3 renegade Titan legions. Worthy Shadow, Primarch's office. Nimrod leaned back against his throne, listening to Arsenadun's report. My lord, I have compiled the casualty statistics from the war with Supreme Valia. The 10th battle group lost 1,047 men in battle, the 2nd battle group lost 618, and the Honor Guard suffered 204 casualties. Following your orders, the total casualty count reported to the War Council is 2,596. Although the 2 Titan legions involved were allies, the Iron Halo was, after all, within the Empire's sights. Both Terra and Mars were monitoring the situation. 41 tripodal walking mechs were lost, 14 Guardianal Type 1 and 27 Type 2. Nimrod nodded. After arriving in the Tempestus Segmentum, ending the war in less than 1 standard month was no slower than Corvus Corax leading the Raven Guard to reclaim Supreme Valia in his memory. More importantly, he relied on the Nation of Disorder to transmit information in a timely manner, avoiding senseless casualties. Using the goodwill generated by this and his Beander abilities, he secured an alliance with Supreme Valia before the Envoy Tech Priest from Mars arrived. The casualties are much lower than the 5,300 lost when reclaiming Incaldian. Besides my strategy being focused on routing them, eliminating the need for brutal urban warfare to clear rebels and Xenos from the Forge world, the existence and development of the tripodal walking mechs is a major factor. After marveling at the Legion's growth and changes, Nimrod leaned back, arms crossed, naturally thinking of the 4 Forge worlds over which he held some degree of control. The one he controlled most thoroughly was Incaldian in the Ultima Segmentum. The long civil wars and invasions of the Age of Strife had nearly destroyed everything on that Forge world. Chief Forgemaster Netu was someone he had supported all the way from a tech priest to the position of Chief Forgemaster. Incaldian's culture had been reshaped according to his ideas. A deliberately maintained isolationist sentiment meant Incaldian had very little contact with other factions like Mars. Nimrod's will would be executed without compromise. Mezzoa in the Segmentum Obscurus was second. He had liberated the Forge world from the clutches of the Mitu, ending the cruel policy where the Xenos slaughtered millions of the controlled population every year. Because Mezoa was prone to volcanic eruptions and lacked the capacity to maintain a Titan Legion, he provided them with the Ramirez-class Starfort STC, ensuring the Forge world's strategic security. Third was the newly allied Supreme Valia. This Forge world was only nominally subservient to Mars. The tight alliance just signed ensured that the weapons manufactured from the unique liquid gas mixture extracted from the highly corrosive seawater would only be supplied to the Order Shadows. Supreme Valia's the Reaver's Titan Legion, Incaladian's Tiger Eye, and the recently corrupted Dark Fire were the three Titan Legions that, in the original timeline, would have stood with Horus Lupercal during the Great Birthday celebration. Among them, Dark Fire was a frontline Titan Legion with over 100 Titans. Finally, there was Shayna in the Typing Star territory. Although Anacharis Scoria had promoted faster and held more power on the Forge world than in his memory. As an Archmagos, he was the master of a Forge temple. However, Shayna was far beyond the likes of Supreme Valia. Its scale was second only to Forge worlds like Glia. Anacharis's control over Shayna was not even 1/15 yet. Currently, Shayna was only building a battle carrier and providing supplies to repay him for breaking the siege during the Second Randan War, and for leading the Tech Guard on an expedition to the Randan home planet to punish the Xenos who invaded the Sacred World. He still considered Shayna under his control because he believed in the capabilities of the Tyrant of Shayna from his memories. Even without his help, Anacharis had managed to control most of Shayna during the Great Birthday celebration only 30 years after becoming a sage. Now, it was even more certain. Shayna, currently the weakest in terms of control, would be the Forge world with the highest production capacity and value in the future. After pondering the situation of the 4 Forge worlds he controlled, Nimrod thought to himself. Aside from the segmentum solar where Terra is located, I have control over a Forge world in each of the other 4 segmentums. While Nimrod was reflecting, the Primarch attendant spoke to report another matter. Mars has separated the Abomination paradigm from the Randan artificial war satellite and reconstructed it as a battle carrier. The Chief Forgemaster invites you to go and receive it. Nimrod gave a slight nod, silently considering how to allocate this ship, a refitted Gloriana-class battleship that far surpassed ordinary battle carriers. He first excluded the 1st, 3rd, and 4th battle groups which already had Gloriana-class battleships, the 2nd battle group with the Song of Slaughter, the 7th battle group with its 4 Relic-class battleships, and the 11th battle group with the Dark Age of Technology strike cruiser, the Dark Sovereign. Of the remaining 6 battle groups, he then excluded the 5th battle group and the 6th battle group in the Colonnade New District, as there were already plans for them to prepare in advance to defend the Carium Gate against the rebel legions. Finally, from the remaining 4, he chose the 10th battle group, which had suffered the greatest losses recently but had the highest headcount of all battle groups. It belongs to Ramsey. As you wish. The snow-haired Arsena took the order. 935. M30. The people of Terra were preparing for new festivities amidst the New Year's celebratory atmosphere. The Primarch of the Order Shadows, Lord Nimrod, had completed the compliance of Supreme Valia and returned to Terra. The Black Aquila shuttle slowly landed on the pad. Nimrod stepped off the deck, followed by Ramsey and Herzl, the supreme warlord of the Dark Fire Titan Legion. Servo skulls flew everywhere, and amidst fluttering streamers, they sang out in loud voices. Herzl followed closely behind Lord Nimrod, listening to the chants from the servo skulls and loudspeakers. Lord Nimrod, Primarch of the Order Shadows, eternal victor over the enemies of mankind. Lord Nimrod, bringer of compliance to the Forge World Supreme Valia, liberator and ruler of Vostonia. Welcome him. Lord Nimrod, son of the Emperor, Primarch of the 11th Legion, has come to your side. He gazed with admiration at Lord Nimrod's towering back, the incarnate avatar of the Omniscia. Suddenly, his own name echoed through the Vox system. Lord Herzl, supreme warlord of the Dark Fire. Master of the Blazing Glory, who wields the Titan's fire to incinerate enemy craft. Herzl's hair stood on end, his name was being sung on Terra. This was all glory bestowed upon him by Lord Nimrod. With a face identical to the Black Emperor's, Ramsey wore a similar smile as he walked toward Malkador amidst the looping achievements and chants of the servo skulls. A smile appeared on the Keeper of the Seals' aged face as he spoke. Warlord Herzl, the banner of the dark fire shall be hung upon the eternity gate by your own hand. Nimrod, your father is waiting for you there. He has prepared a gift for you. Nimrod was stunned to hear this. Bringing Supreme Valia to compliance hadn't been a particularly grueling war, yet Old Man Huang actually had a reward. He thought for a moment and soon realized that the compliance of Supreme Valia was not just about bringing back a forged world, it represented the pacification of the constantly war-torn Iron Halo. It represented dozens of star systems across the Typing and Tempestus segmentums entering a brand new era. Both Old Man Huang and Malkador needed this celebration to proclaim the achievements of the Great Crusade and inspire the citizens of the Empire. Old Man Huang has quite a few good things. Even if it's not something like uniqueness, it's bound to be good. Filled with anticipation, he boarded the ceremonial vehicle prepared for him. Welcome to Fanfic Audiobook, your go-to place for immersive audiobooks. If you enjoy the content, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. And please support the author by link in description. Warband 741, Old Man Huang, why did you give me Gilliman's banner of Macragge? Terra, the Vinaya region of the Nordic Peninsula. The lean and youthful Harlan Swinsalen looked up at the holographic screen, his eyes shining as he stared at Ramsey, who looked exactly like the Primarch. Legends of the Emperor leading the conquest of the Moranson Federation echoed in his mind, and stories of his powerful warriors swinging heavy fists to send the modified soldiers of mad scientists flying flashed through his head. He clenched his fists. The other boys around him, Trevi, Armada, Kennett, were all the same, their eyes filled with longing just like the others who had been chosen. In 3 days, after the triumph ceremony of Primarch Nimrod, they would leave their homes in the frozen north and head to the Amando Training Center halfway across Terra. I must become an Order Shadow. The Luna Wolves are the best. Trevi shouted loudly. Armada looked at the Grand Hall on the video screen, filled with military banners. As long as I pass the assessment and become a warrior of the Emperor, it's fine. No, it's different, Kennett shouted. Of course it's different, the words of the person who chose him flashed through Harlan's mind. I want to be the best. At the same moment, inside the hall of the Eternity Gate, which was wide enough for 1,000 people to walk side by side, Nimrod watched Supreme Warlord Herzl holding the banner high and hanging the tapestry. Suddenly, a memory flashed in his mind of Lorgar Aurelian going on a pilgrimage to the Eye of Terror, led by the Cadia native Ingedel. In the future shown to Lorgar by Ingedel, the demon prince elevated by the Chaos Gods, his progeny, the Word-Bearers, were attacking the Eternity Gate guarded by the Imperial Fists. Lorgar strolled through the hall and stopped under a war banner. On the banner was a white world, with people in cloaks holding pennants. The banner of Valhalla. Nimrod pulled back his thoughts and muttered to himself. Lorgar went on a pilgrimage to the Eye of Terror in 967, Valhalla must have joined the Empire before then. The next divination in 2 years will be for Valhalla. As Nimrod mused, his gaze rolled forward along the wave-like tapestries. Lorgar's vision could only see 100,000 banners, but Nimrod's superhuman sight could take in 1,000,000 war flags. Yet even he could not encompass the entire hall in his vision. The war flags of every regiment from every world in the Imperial domain stretched deep into the hall. Over 2 million banners had already been raised in this hall, and in the coming decades, another 1,000,000 would rise. Nimrod did not expand his consciousness. After Herzl reboarded the vehicle with a beaming smile and the convoy advanced for another 2 hours, he finally saw Old Man Huang standing atop the marble steps at the end of the hall. His gaze was drawn to the majestic fortress behind him, its dense ceramite shell covered in layers of ornate gold. Nimrod's lips twitched. Standing guard before the gates of this majestic and solemn fortress were 2 wolf-masked Warhound Titans. The towering bodies of the Warhound Titans and their city-leveling cannons seemed somewhat unworthy of this grand and ornate fortress. The completed Imperial Palace had consumed a quarter of Mars' adamantium reserves. Nimrod focused his gaze on Old Man Huang. In Old Man Huang's hand was a war banner. Nimrod's lips curled up. Old Man Huang was getting addicted to giving out war banners. After the Ran-Dan War, Old Man Huang took me into the vault and I picked a banner. Does he think I have a thing for them? The Mentor of Disorders eyes flashed, but he saw no spiritual radiance upon it. Even if it isn't a mystical item, whatever Old Man Huang brings out can't be ordinary. Nimrod narrowed his eyes, examining the flagpole in Old Man Huang's hand. The flagpole shone with the dazzling light of adamantium, and the war banner was black. The Order's shadows, Legion emblem, outlined in liquid gold, shone brilliantly. Disordered black arcs formed wings, spikes, and an abstract crown above. Engraved on the banner was his name written in High Gothic and Vostonian, Nimrod. Around the banner, written in High Gothic, were the major victories Nimrod had won leading the Order's shadows. Written in green, Flame Wheel, Orcs. Painted in shimmering ripples, Colonnade Abyss, Midu. In the top right corner of the banner, a Ran Dan, that was indistinguishable to ordinary people and almost invisibly transparent was a sign that the Empire did not want the cruel Xenos to be remembered. About 1/5 of the way up the banner was Supreme Valia, the Reavers, rendered in blue and red. This material, this style, it seems a bit familiar. Light and shadow flashed in the Primarch's eyes as he focused on the banner's surface. A material I haven't seen before. A sudden flash of inspiration struck Nimrod's mind, and a name jumped out, Banner of Macragge. Memories of the Banner of Macragge surged in his mind. This banner was the most precious among the countless flags of the Ultramarines. It recorded the entire glorious history of the Ultramarines, and was only brought to the battlefield when the entire warband was deployed, held high by the only officer with the title of Ancient. It was personally awarded to Rabute Gilliman by Old Man Huang. By the 42nd millennium, it recorded the names of 77 chapter masters, from Gilliman to Marnius Calgar. Old Man Huang, why did you give me Gilliman's Banner of Macragge? No, now it's the Banner of Vostonia. As Nimrod mused, the vehicle rolled forward, finally completing the several-hour journey. He stepped out of the vehicle and came before Old Man Huang. A smile appeared on the Emperor's face, and he said loudly, Nimrod, you have won victory once again. With the momentum of a Pegasus, you swiftly brought Supreme Valia into compliance. I have specially commissioned artisans to forge this war banner for you, in recognition of your glorious achievements during the Great Crusade. The Emperor of Mankind said expectantly, I hope you will continue to gallop forward, defeating all enemies of mankind and engraving them upon this war banner. Nimrod's eyes flickered imperceptibly. Old Man Huang wants me to keep winning victories for him. He took the adamantium flagpole and cast a scrutinizing glance at the banner's surface. Though it's not a very valuable material reward, the banner's surface is excellently fireproof, and any tears won't be noticeable. A durable and hard-to-damage war banner, the accumulation of history will inspire a sense of honor and morale in the Order shadows whenever it appears on the battlefield. Thinking of this, Nimrod felt it was quite good. Well, after all, bringing Supreme Valia into compliance wasn't a brutal campaign, it's good enough to have a reward. It's more substantial than just a couple of verbal commendations. As he mused, he accepted the war banner. Thank you for your gift. The banner of Vostonia will fly over the battlefield and win every war. In the Navia region, Harlan Swinsalen stared intently at the holographic screen, his fists clenched so tightly he didn't even notice his nails digging into his palms. A shining conviction echoed in his mind, he must become an Order shadow and win victories for Lord Nimrod under that war banner. Chapter 742, The Inquisition has not yet been established, Nimrod has already begun planting spies. Terra Imperial Palace, a lakeside villa near the Plaza of Heroes. Barton Drake, clad in military uniform, stepped through the villa's main gate. He immediately felt his skin prickle like needles, and an unnatural bitterness welled up in his throat. He scanned the reception hall on the first floor with a scrutinizing eye. His gaze swept over the Order shadows encased in black armor, the silver-haired Primarch attendant Arsena Dunn, and finally landed on a person with a short sword at their waist. He was not an Order shadow, yet he was taller and more robust than Barton himself, even after Barton's multiple augmentations. He wore a falcon short sword at his hip and carried a spear on his back that, even compared to him, should be called a giant spear. The Jushan's spear. He must be someone Lord Nimrod trusts implicitly for him to be entrusted with the spear gifted by the Emperor. Barton studied the giant with curiosity. The man's resolute face and sharp gaze caused the battle-hardened veteran to instinctively tense his body. The giant was a powerful warrior. Barton's gaze lingered for a brief moment before shifting away. He felt no goodwill toward this warrior, he felt an instinctive sense of loathing and discomfort. An untouchable. Barton looked toward Lord Nimrod in surprise. In the Empire, only the talons of the Emperor, the Sisters of Silence, were untouchables. Lord Nimrod actually had an untouchable following him as well. Barton's pace faltered for 3 steps before he regained his original stride. He stood still and bowed respectfully. Lord Nimrod. The Primarch leaned back against his black basalt throne. Light and shadow flickered with dark spots in his eyes as he scrutinized the old general before him, the man who had missed out on the position of Marshal of the Solar Auxilia because of him. He showed no resentment at all. He had lost the position of Supreme Commander of the Solar Auxilia, but he had recommended the Chief Medical Officer, Evos Jovan. Barton, sit, Nimrod said, nodding slightly with satisfaction as a thought crossed his mind. Within the first layer of the Nation of Disorder, the Space Monkey immediately went into action, tossing chainswords manufactured on Vostonia and other materials into the furnace to concoct the warrior potion. After issuing the command, his attention returned to Barton. Barton picked up a greenish, jade-like berry. He bit through the jade-colored skin, enjoying the lychee-like foretaste that was as fresh as morning dew. Jada berries were all the rage on Terra, becoming a must-have fruit for the banquets of the powerful and wealthy, a symbol of status and wealth. Barton, however, didn't spend a single Terran credit. Every year, 1,000 fresh jade berries were delivered to his manor. He used these fresh fruits to entertain visitors and reward the officers under his command. As the crisp mid-note of snow pear rippled through Barton's mouth, Nimrod spoke. Are you acquainted with the Lord of the Sangha region in North Africa? Barton didn't know why Lord Nimrod was interested in a minor lord. The Sangha region was just a piece of territory in North Africa, and its nobles weren't even qualified to step into the Terran court. Nevertheless, he immediately began searching his memory. After 10 seconds or so, he finally replied. My lord, one of my grandnieces married into the Sangha region. The grandniece Barton mentioned was from a branch of the family. After her father was killed in action, the daughter, having lost her support, chose to sell off her assets, leave the expensive Terra, and marry down to a noble in the Sangha region. Nimrod nodded slightly. I need her to keep a constant eye on the Lord of Sangha. If a wealthy merchant from the Mobei region named Lemuel Gomon marries the Lord's daughter, Marika, inform me immediately. Kian will remain on Terra for the time being. Nimrod was laying out his plans for the future. He had even specifically transferred the captain of the 5th Company of the 4th Battle Group, the gatekeeper, Kian, out of the Order Shadows. The Inquisition had not yet been established, the idea hadn't even sprouted, but Nimrod had already begun planting seeds. Lemuel Gomon was one of the 4 founders of the Inquisition. Of course, to commemorate his close friend, the chief librarian of the Ultramarines, Dio Promus, he would change his name. In the records of the future Inquisition, among the founders, there would only be the name Promus, not Lemuel Gomon. Besides planting a spy in the Inquisition, Lemuel had another value. He was closely connected to Magnus. After the burning of Prospero, he even fused with one of the 5 shards of Magnus for a time. Barton privately decided to keep an eye on that Sangha Lord and Lemuel Gomon. By your command. With a flick of Nimrod's right hand, a bottle of blood-colored potion appeared in his palm. Barton, you have served me loyally. This is your reward. Barton took the blood-colored potion without hesitation. He opened the cap, and a strong, metallic scent of blood hit him. He tilted his head back and drank the potion. It felt like squirming flesh sliding down into his stomach. A moment later, his body expanded, nearly bursting through his fitted armor. The newly ascended warrior knelt on one knee in excitement. Thank you for your gift, my lord. I will surely forge ahead and serve you with my life. My lord, I shall carry out your will. Kian, encased in his armor, bowed to the Black Emperor. Out of consideration for Barton, he did not use the divine honorific. Kian followed Barton out. Leaving his battle brothers made him feel a sense of loss, but he believed the Black Emperor had bestowed a sacred mission upon him. Furthermore, the Black Emperor had promised that for the next century, the Shadow Guards stationed with the Terran nobility would all be selected from his company. 5 days later, after finishing a series of propaganda activities arranged by Malkador, Nimrod boarded an Aquila shuttle. The elegant black mechanical bird soared from the spaceport. He turned his gaze toward the supreme warlord of the Dark Fire, Herzl, who sat in the opposite seat. The war is over. Your dark fire shall set sail back to Wonquan No. 8. By your will. Herzl looked at Lord Nimrod with regret and gratitude. Lord Nimrod had given him the chance to win glory. He had personally hung the banner of the dark fire in the hall of the Eternity Gate. Nimrod caught Herzl's slight disappointment and said with a smile, "Do not be impatient, you will have chances to win glory. Your task now is to maintain close contact with the warlords of the King of Destruction. Since the King of Destruction could influence the dark fire to stand with Horus, Herzl could naturally, in turn, influence them, as they were also split from the Legio Vulcanum. Even if he only won over a few titans, it would still be a force to be reckoned with." Herzl stood up abruptly. "By your will." At the same moment the transport ships of the Dark Fire Titan Legion entered the Gate of Hades, the Black Aquila shuttle slowly landed at the Martian starport. Nimrod, accompanied by Ramsey, who shared his exact appearance, walked toward the envoy tech priest of the Adeptus Mechanicus. "Lord Nimrod, Mars welcomes your visit." His mechanical mechadendrites rose, pointing toward a massive void ship docked in the starport. "Allow me to introduce it to you. This battle carrier, refitted from the Abomination paradigm, is 18.16 kilometers long and has a mass of 110.04 megatons." After listening for a moment, Nimrod spoke with a smile, "It belongs to Ramsey." The envoy tech priest understood and immediately said. The tech priest who oversaw the refit is already waiting on the boarding deck. After Ramsey went to take delivery of the battle carrier, Nimrod gazed at the envoy tech priest before him and spoke. "I promised Supreme Valia that they would be allowed to retain 3-star systems." The envoy tech priest's mechanical eyes flickered, and his cogitator array immediately flashed with a message from another envoy tech priest responsible for negotiating with Supreme Valia. Supreme Valia was stalling the process of reaching an agreement. It turned out they had the support of the Primarch, Nimrod. "Lord Nimrod, with all due respect, although you have brought Supreme Valia into the fold, you have no authority to interfere in Martian affairs." Nimrod said calmly, "I will provide Mars with a standard template construct." The envoy tech priest's cogitator array surged with a series of 0s and 1s, forming a sequence far larger than the one for the 3-star systems. His Vox synthesizer trembled. "Truly." Nimrod smiled faintly. "Of course, but I have one condition." "Please state it," the envoy tech priest said, his voice trembling slightly less. "The STC I provide is related to power armor and will assist Mars in researching a new generation of plate," Nimrod said. "I demand that Tech Marines be dispatched to participate in the research and development of this new generation of armor." Nimrod was willing to give up the STC not just to fulfill his promise to Supreme Valia, but also to take the opportunity to obtain the Mark IV manufacturing technology that the Loyalists did not yet possess. The envoy tech priest went silent for a moment as data surged through the Martian noosphere. A moment later, he spoke. "Lord Nimrod, the Mars Forge director has agreed to your proposal. When will you deliver the STC?" "Within 30 years, Nimrod said calmly. "I think I do not need to prove that I will provide it on time." The power armor STC he would provide came from Aureus. The fallen Horus had obtained 2 STCs from there and given them to the then Mars Forge director, Kelber Howe. Of course, the tech priest did not hesitate to agree immediately. Other Primarchs, except for Lord Ferrus Manus, Lord Perturabo, and Lord Magnus, who had already found multiple STCs, might not be able to fulfill such a promise. But Lord Nimrod was even more trustworthy than those 3 Primarchs. Lord Nimrod was the favorite of the Omniscia. He had guided Archmagos Ryan Ramirez to recover the Ramirez-class Star Fort, and Sage Wojciech Bellick to find the Barek battle tank. If he promised it would be there, he would certainly not break his word. He must have already received a divine revelation from the Omniscia. A month later, the new flagship of the 10th Battle Group, the battle carrier Shadow Sword, sailed into the Gate of Elysium. At the same moment, within the Forge Temple of Supreme Valia, the new Mars Forge director, UNAI-9, signed his name on the agreement. In the noosphere, 0s and 1s flickered rapidly. Lord Nimrod has fulfilled his promise. P.S. Wishing all Legion monks a happy New Year's Day. May you be healthy and have all your wishes come true in the new year. Chapter 743 World Eaters Captain Margot, Order Shadows is fortunate to have a Gene Father like Lord Nimrod. 937. M30. Aboard the World Eater's fleet, the order was given. On every command deck of the XII Legion, a glaring, hated countdown began, 31 hours. Since the return of the Gene Father Angron, 31 had become the number of death. The Gene Father decreed that the standard day of his homeworld would be the strict measure, every planet must be conquered within 31 hours. Even for Astartes, conquering a world in 31 hours was brutally tight. Aboard the Hound's Fang, Captain Margot of the 18th Company strode across the hangar deck. The Unbroken had mustered. Back when the World Eaters were still the War Hounds, the Legion had nicknamed the 18th warriors the Unbroken. Since its founding, no warrior of the company had ever broken, no matter how fierce the fight. Through blood and fire, they had weathered every crisis. Margot marched to the 3 squads of veteran elites and roared. Genna once knelt to the Imperium of man. The imperial designation for Genna was 93-15. But it has chosen betrayal again, no different from any world that refuses obedience. When news of Genna's treachery arrived, Chief Apothecary Galan Surik petitioned the Gene Father Angron for immediate action. He scoured the planetary logs and saw that Genin cyborg techniques could furnish data for his butcher's nails research. Angron issued the order at once: set sail and crush the revolt. Captain Karn of the 8th, the senior commander who best understood the Gene Father, told them, "This is our chance. Once we implant the butcher's nails, the Gene Father's regard for us will change. We will be the slave gladiators who fight at his side." Margot could not say if Karn's words would prove true, but having accepted the task he would give it everything. "You know we have no time to waste, move fast. Trust your brother's shields as you trust your own. Fight is won, and no enemy will stand before us. We go to battle, break so that we may build anew, for Angron and the Emperor." His Unbroken answered with a roar. Squad sergeants of the Departamento Munitorum Standard led their squads out. The company split by squads, double timing to their assigned drop pods and stormbirds. Heat from engines spooling up shimmered in the air. The World Eaters locked themselves into sealed fists of steel, hydraulic rams clamped them in place. Margot bumped shoulders with Orance at the foot of his stormbird, his honor guard formed a line and strapped in aboard the gunship. "We will do it," said Orance, champion of the war axe. "This time, on this world, we can." Margot sealed his helm, jade light flickered across his visor. "For the Legion, brother." It was the first battle since the Gene Father had been found on Nuceria in which no Primarch would take the field. Angron rarely attended the Legion's councils of war. When he did, he offered only cold scorn and little else. Yet since Karn had brought the Gene Father back, Angron had never missed a fight. Even in his absence, the World Eaters felt his gaze. The Father's shadow lay over every warrior, hearts racing with that cursed countdown. Margot glanced at his helm display. Fortunately, Genna's surface showed no anti-air rays. When the timer hit 26, the 18th Company stepped from their pods and the Stormbirds screamed down. At the same moment, on Genna's moon, under a full moon, Galan Surik spread metals and gems shaped like lunar phases before him. Moon metal, yellow crescents of topaz, purple spheres of amethyst, moonstone from Vostonia's satellite. The potions professor opened a dozen crystal vials. The scent of blood filled the air. Omega's was the sweetest. Galan folded pale hands, inverted in silent benediction. "Thanks be to my lord." He unclasped them, drew a near solid crimson draught from his belt, and drank. Moments later, risen as the Scarlet Scholar, he drew twin ritual daggers of black gold, raised a wall of spirit, knelt, and prayed to the Black Emperor. Black mist swirled, metals and gems of every moon phase passed through an unseen door. From the depths of the haze, the Black Emperor upon his throne spoke with majesty. "Genna cannot be brought to heel within 31 hours. Margot's 18th will be ordered to decimate itself. He will refuse, and Varas will lead the librarians against Angron. Warn Varas. Use soporifics to render Angron unconscious until the butcher's nails are complete." At the revelation, Galan shivered. The Legion would turn upon itself. He did not doubt that Chief Librarian Varas would rise against the Gene Father as foretold, however unthinkable. The Black Emperor had foreseen events on Nuceria. Before Angron tasked him with the Legion's nails, he had spoken of Genin cyborgs. Galan was confident he could finish the work quickly. Aided by the mysterious figure who spoke to him from the Emperor's side, the nails were nearly done, only Genin tech was missing. What puzzled him was why the Black Emperor would spare Margot. Margot had not been among those he had been told to enlighten. Whatever the reason, since my lord commands me to aid Margot, I shall enlighten him. As Surik returned to the Conqueror, the 12 legions counter-ticked to 19. On Genna's surface, beneath the gate of Malcor, Margot ripped his chain axe through a foe and, in the brief respite, checked the progress of the other companies. The company sigils flickered chaotically across the display, the men of Genna resisted stubbornly, and none of the other companies were advancing faster than his own unbroken. Margot opened the Vox channel and hailed the captain of the Hound's Fang. Captain Yuta, we need your ground support. I'll give you targeting coordinates from the surface. Yuta's image on the screen wavered, he did not answer at once. Only after a brief exchange with someone off-screen did he speak. Lord Captain, given the state of the ground battle, I can't guarantee our shells won't land on our own men. After Bruccio, the link crackled and died, but Margot already knew what his shipmaster had meant. 3 months ago at Bruccio, the fleet's orbital strike had disobeyed the Gene Father's orders. Unwarned, one of the companies fighting beside Angron had been scythed by friendly fire. When the battle ended, the Gene Father executed the captain who had ordered the bombardment. We can rely only on ourselves, Margot thought bitterly. He looked across the field. Like the rest, his company had abandoned phalanx discipline and was simply charging the Genna lines. They carved deep into the enemy, but quickly scattered among them with no cohesion left. My company, like the others, is losing order. If the old Legion Master Locke were here, he'd flog every company captain and bust us back to line troopers. Is this truly Angron's way of war? Margot grieved. No thought, no discipline. You are less a man of flesh than mindless slaughter itself. Every shred of restraint and calm has been burned away by those damned butcher's nails. Look at the way you fight, every breath costs a world eater his life. Margot could not help remembering the Reapers, once as savage as they. When Lord Nimrod returned, the Reapers were reforged, their sharp senses turned from savoring kills to seeking enemy weakness. The Order Shadows are lucky to have such a Gene Father in Lord Nimrod. And what of us? This is idiocy, said Honor Guard Hanno, voicing Margot's own thought. His shield gone, he was laying about with his phalanx blade, felling anything that came near. We should pull back and tell the fleet to burn this rock from orbit. No. Margot blew a Genin apart with his bolt pistol, snapped it shut and swung his short chain's axe. In a roar of teeth he chopped 8 men into 25 pieces. He won't allow it. You know he won't. Then tell me he'll accept the result we're getting. Asked Axe Champion Orontus, saying what every man in the company was thinking. Before Margot could answer, a strident horn sounded on the right, standardized, gladiatorial, a call for aid. No senior officer remained alive in that company. That's 44th. They pushed too far and are surrounded, standard-bearer Astakos shouted, raising his banner high. Every other company is engaged, no one can support them. If we do nothing, they'll be wiped out. 44th had taken heavy losses, Barkaba's company should have been behind 18th in reserve, but he had hurled the World Eaters forward to finish within 31 hours. They were drowning in blood. If 18th did not help, their brothers would be overwhelmed. Margot, the city gate is ours, we can still break into Genna, Orontus yelled. If we go to help, we'll miss the gate. Lightning lashed past Margot, incinerating a dozen Genins. Chief Librarian Tice shouted, decide now, aid 44th or advance. We can't abandon them, Margot said flatly. We don't win by leaving our own behind. I won't stand idle while we can still help our brothers. But those are the Father's orders, Orontus reminded him. Margot snarled, let Angron and his countdown burn in hell. Before he returns, 44th were our Warhound's brothers. Spear-tip formation. Margot roared, then a shrill bell rang inside every helm, echoing through the World Eaters like a meteor in their minds. The timer hit 0, a crimson halo flashed across helmet displays, striking harder than any Genin weapon. A single terrible thought filled every skull, they had failed. Margot clenched his teeth until blood dripped from his chin. A broken Genin at his feet looked up, silently mocking through a ruined face. Margot hurled himself on the man like a rabid cur, fists rising and falling. The Genin's skull burst, blood filmed Margot's lenses. Captain, it's over, standard-bearer Astakos shouted, hauling Margot up by the shoulder guard. Margot glanced at the gates of Malcor, capital of Genna, the way was open, victory within reach. He drew a breath, scooped a handful of Genin soil and stuffed it into a pouch. Rising, he clipped the pouch to his belt. Form the company. We move as one. In silence the men pulled one another from the butchery and hoisted the wounded who could not walk. The World Eaters broke off, the Genins stared, calm and bewildered, as they withdrew. They trudged back to their muster points and filed into Stormbirds and Landers. Margot's Stormbird climbed toward low orbit, bound for the Conqueror. Ahead, the shadow of Angron flared into scarlet light. Chapter 744 By Nimrod's decree, stop Angron's decimation. Captain Margot of the 18th Company of the World Eaters strode into the Triumph Hall of the Conqueror and surveyed the tattered banners hanging from the walls. Those were enemy standards, the glory of the war hounds. Since the day of her launching this had been a place of honor. From Legion Master down to the newest neophyte, all could walk here and relive the bright victories they had won. Margot clenched his fists, the warship had long ceased to be named the Dread Resolve, and he was no longer a war hound. Now he had not come for glory. They were gathered for failure. The hall was horribly quiet, the World Eater's armor was cracked and smeared with the oily amber blood of the Genna. Everyone waited for the Gene Father's wrath. Angron gripped the haft of his chain axe Widowmaker and stalked forward like a predator seeking prey. Every man felt the scorn and displeasure in his gaze, the Primarch's soul-deep terror. Failure, Angron sneered, again. Karn, I told you, he said, bloodshot eyes fixed on the captain of the 8th Assault Company. I told you to kill them all. One simple order, everything must die. Men, women, old, young, even a dog, everything, wiped out. Angron's stare swept the whole legion. You so-called World Eaters can't conquer one planet. 10,000 of you, pathetic. He lifted his gaze toward distant Nuceria. My brothers and sisters, what do you say? The butcher's nails whirred. Angron laughed aloud. Look at these wretched imitators. We were runaway slaves, starved and weak, fighting the high riders with sticks and stones. We burned whole cities. And we did it between one sunrise and sunset, one Nucerian day, 31 Terran hours. He drew himself up. We were city swallowers. He lowered his head in contempt, looking down on the World Eaters. You have warships, you have armor, you have weapons. Your so-called legionaries, your so-called glory, can't compare to us. Margot ground his jaw in humiliation. Every insult and defeat since he joined the Legion paled beside those met since meeting Angron. Angron exhaled, beginning the usual humiliation of the captains. Carve the blood rope, answer for your failure. Every captain stepped from the ranks to repeat the rite. They stripped off their armor, peeling back blood-stained ceramite until all stood bare-chested. Margot drew his combat knife, felt along his spine, and found the dark red scar line that coiled like a serpent. When he located its end he plunged the blade deep. To overcome his body's healing he had to cut savagely. He drove the knife clear through until the tip scraped his black carapace, blood ran down his hips. He reached to the pouch at his belt and packed the wound with Genna soil. The pain meant nothing, the wound that mattered was within. When the scar knit, it would leave a black dotted line. The shame would last forever. The blood rope was one of the few traditions of Angron's homeworld he allowed the World Eaters to ape. The Legion seized any chance to bond with their Primarch, even through defeat. As Margot rose the wound had already closed. In silence the captains donned their power armor. You call yourselves conquerors, Angron roared, you dare call yourselves World Eaters. You're not half what my brothers and sisters were, only failed pretenders. Angron clutched Widowmaker's haft and paced forward. His bronze armor creaked, his sons lowered their heads, dreading the coming punishment. My legion, he scoffed, I look at you and see nothing but weakness. I will not abide weakness, it must be purged. He halted and delivered the final judgment, decimation. Margot looked back heavily at his company, men who had fought for him. Now 1 in every 10 would be beaten to death by his battle brothers to soothe their father's broken heart. No. Margot's voice cracked through the dead hall. Quadrine, we failed to conquer in a single day, so you order us to punish ourselves. Buho, Tricotin, Cestus IV. Our blades were stained with our brother's blood for no other reason than to cool your rage. Because you failed, Angron said coldly. We did not fail. Margot felt the bloody spray of that roar. He knew his life was now measured in heartbeats, he had to speak before he was torn apart. We conquered those worlds, we won those wars. Now we stand ready to butcher our own brothers. No. Margot shouted. No more. The hall fell silent for seconds, every World Eater stared in horror. Angron rumbled with laughter. I like you, Captain. You at least have the courage to speak your mind. I'll give you a choice. The smile vanished. Choose now, or I will choose for you. Margot clenched his teeth. This legion is yours, its warriors carry your blood. Enough have died today, I beg you. My Primarch. My father. Do not do this. Angron snorted, features twisting. Again and again you tell me, we are your sons, you are our master, our lives are yours. He turned his cold gaze on Karn. Wasn't that what you told me in the cave, so I would return? Are you liars and cowards? Am I your master? Then face the fate I decree. This is madness. Margot shook his head. Karn stepped to Angron's side, voice edged with warning frost. Margot, watch your words. Choose, Angron repeated, or I will choose for you. His eyes fixed on the warriors of the 18th behind Margot. I will, said Cyril, stepping from the ranks. He dropped to his knees before Margot, straightened his neck, and bared his throat. Margot stared at the neophyte, the future of the Legion, who should not die like this. For the Legion, for Angron, Cyril said calmly. For the Legion, Margot echoed, hesitating as he drew his short gladius. No, he let the sword fall. Angron cut him off. Your courage is noted, but you talk too much. As punishment, you will strangle him with your bare hands. Margot's hand trembled, he stared at Angron in disbelief. This went beyond punishment, beyond even humiliation. What father could hate his own child so much? Lord Korax had exiled his sons, and that had been cold enough. Lord Nimrod had given the Reapers chance after chance, helping them change. Angron, though, wanted him to kill his own battle brothers with his own hands. Impossible. Margot hurled his sword onto the deck. Impossible, father. You dare refuse me. Angron's eyes blazed crimson, a chilling roar tore from his throat. His head began to shake. Something tightened around his skull, pulling at his scalp with a sickening creak. A cable atop his head snapped taut, fused to the bone. The World Eaters heard the butcher's nails sing and shrank back in terror. Terminator Bardo stepped forward, trying to calm Angron. Blood sprayed as Angron ripped Bardo's arm free and smashed his head against the deck. A severed arm landed at Margot's feet. Angron leapt among the World Eaters, 13 died in an instant. The Widowmaker whirled, dismembering 8 more. Blood painted the deck. 9th Captain Dregar charged with his honor guard, hoping to overwhelm the Primarch by sheer numbers. With a roar Angron hurled them aside. He seized a World Eater, slammed him down, and crushed his skull beneath a boot. Teth stood at the rear of the triumphal hall. The moment he arrived he left the 18th Company and joined the Librarians. The Librarians were kept apart, ordered to stand farthest from their Gene Father. Their father hid nothing of his loathing for psychers. Teth clenched his teeth, merging his mind with the other Librarians in silent communion. He's killed dozens, more than ever before. We have to intervene, Teth thought, watching his brothers of the 18th wait in terror for death. Too dangerous. We have no choice. Chief Librarian Varus's powerful mind voice drowned out every other. If his rage goes on, how many more of us will die? No more debate, act now. Varus gathered every librarian's consciousness and told the young codiceer, Teth, follow our lead. Teth forced down fear and doubt. He had studied the perilous rite but never imagined using it. Around Carries every librarian knelt upon the deck. Temperature plummeted, frost bloomed across their armor, thickening into plates of ice. Brothers, begin the conflux. Their united minds soared, forging a titanic psychic warrior. He stood as tall as a Primarch, yet only those with warp sight could see him. He swept over the World Eaters, leaving trails of frost across their plate. Boom! Warlocks, begone! Angron bellowed, the will of a Primarch erupting. A psychic shockwave hammered every librarian's soul. His fury's too strong, we can't hold him, Teth gasped, face bloodless. You are our father, you must stop, your rage is killing your sons. Varus shouted. You are not my sons. You are the weaklings he forced upon me. Angron roared. My only family died the day he took me away. In that clash of minds Teth glimpsed his father's thoughts. Flickering images flared before him, a lifetime of abuse and horror. Endless torment, a cycle that tore the soul to shreds. The flare seized Teth's consciousness, ripping him out of the psychic warrior. His mind was dragged into Angron's chaos, trapped. Teth's identity blurred, he shivered as he saw himself a child running barefoot through snow, rocks slicing his soles. As his mind teetered on collapse, Varus raised a pistol and fired. A needle dart sped toward Angron. Caught in the duel of wills, the Primarch could not move, the dart struck his neck. Thud! Angron's mighty frame crashed to the deck. Teth's consciousness snapped back into his body. The Gene Father's will is stronger than I ever imagined. Thank Surik for the warning, Varus thought, shaken. Varus, what have you done? Karn shouted. I stopped him from slaughtering our brothers. Karn's eyes were eyes, he drew his chain axe. Karn, Chief Apothecary Galan Surik stepped between them, voice calm. Remember why we came to Genna. Once we master the cyborg tech, the Primarch will accept us. Now he sleeps, we have time. Galan knelt beside Angron. I'll keep him under till we succeed. Karn's cold gaze held Surik a long moment, then swept the captains, finally resting on Margot. Move. We cannot fail again, cannot let him down. 3 Terran hours later, aboard Conqueror's lower decks. After injecting Angron with a full vial of Nusarian Somna, Galan hurried to his altar and prayed to the Black Emperor. A ghostly gate opened, black mist rose. My lord, Galan dropped to one knee. I obey your command. Nimrod sat enthroned, hearing Galan's report, he nodded in satisfaction. A third of the World Eater's librarians spared, Teth's mind not lost to Angron. Worth telling Galan to warn Varus and stop the decimation. Nimrod already counted the World Eater's librarians as his own. To keep a third from burning out and Teth from being trapped, he had Galan caution Varus. Once you master the butcher's nails, offer them to me at once. Margot will rouse Locke to stop you implanting them, do not kill him. Implant the nails I give you into his brain. Though Nimrod's corrosion had changed Galan, making him less cruel than in memory. Margot, unwilling to see the warhounds become butchers like Angron, would still rouse the former chapter master, now dreadnought brother Locke, to strike at Galan. Because Margot was one of the few sane world eaters, Nimrod chose to give him a chance to live. Galan's safety was assured, he had already reached sequence 5 as a Scarlet Scholar. Even without Karn he could subdue Margot and Locke. Convince him to be patient. As you will, Galan answered reverently, and the black mist swallowed him. Chapter 745, The First Master of the Warhounds, Surik is actually this strong. Like the flagships of many legions, the central apothecary chamber of the World Eater's chief apothecary Galan Surik was located deep within the Conqueror. Unlike others, in the main laboratory of polished clean glass and steel architecture, the sterile lighting could be deliberately dimmed. On the wide operating table in the center of the room, Galan, encased in his armor, worked at his desk. The generator hummed, and shadows were cast upon the pure white walls. Galan watched the video screen of the operating table, slowly pushing the control lever. For every kilowatt the generator's output increased, he would release his arm and examine the data acquired by the sensors. The Scarlet Scholar keenly heard the humming of the butcher's nails within the adamantium casing, yet he could not hear the high-frequency bands that an Astartes was completely unable to capture. High-frequency sonic technology was not his invention but originated from the Nephilim, a gift from the Black Emperor. Galan had heard that Horus Lupercal was the first to discover the Nephilim enslaving billions of humans across hundreds of worlds. He and Lord Sanguinius had purged the Nephilim who invaded the Melchior system. But it was Lord Nimrod and Lord Chagatai who purged the hundreds of worlds and finally purified the sinful home planet. The audio frequency band continued to rise. Suddenly, accompanied by a clear explosion, the butcher's nails shattered. Galan's face lit up with joy. He had completed one of the 2 tasks assigned by the Black Emperor, researching a backdoor that could exert influence on the implanted, causing them to die. By tuning the sonic waves to a specific frequency, it would resonate with the vibrating butcher's nails, causing the implant to vibrate at high frequency for a short time until it exploded. He thought of the Hall of Triumph, the scene where the Gene Father slaughtered his progeny. The Black Emperor's requirement is very necessary. This will be the final safety lock, detonating the head of one who loses control, causing them to die when they go mad like Angron, without causing damage. While Galan conducted the experimental verification again, he couldn't help but think of the other task assigned by the Black Emperor, To build in a control switch to manage rage, or at least realize autonomous control of the noise in the mind. The Gene Father never required me to conduct research in this area when studying the Butcher's nails, just as he never hides or controls his own rage. My lord, however, has decreed that I conduct this research. He is very different from Angron. Just as he requires of the Order Shadows, he will surely bring a bright future to the World Eaters. While Galan was deep in thought, he looked up at the surgical tools hanging from the ceiling, where a prepared set of Butcher's nails was located. Theoretically, high-frequency sonic waves can also harmonize the vibrations of the Butcher's nails, but the actual effect still needs experimental verification. He thought of the Black Emperor's instructions and turned to look at another giant screen hanging from the ceiling. There were 160 split screens on the LCD panel, with images coming from improved Maggot's eyes. He had obtained the Maggot's eyes from Nuceria, the world where his Gene Father had landed. They were used by slave masters to monitor the actions of gladiators and impose punishment. Following the Black Emperor's instructions, after excavating many technologies from Nuceria, Galan improved the Maggot's eyes, changing them from hover mode to stealth mode, and placed them inside the vents of the dimly lit corridors around the central apothecary, buried in the blind spots of the spiral staircases. At the same moment, in a corner of the lower deck, Captain Margot of the 18th Company passed through a claustrophobic narrow passage, going deep into the resting place of the Legion's legendary heroes in the corner. He stopped before the great steel door and submitted clearance documents to the combat servitor guarding the entrance. The servitor projected a red laser beam that scanned his entire body. After confirming his identity was correct, the heavy autocannon on its back moved away. He walked into the cold inner chamber, looked around at the platforms hanging on the walls, and found the immortal hero on a steel base. A tech priest dressed in red robes stepped out from the shadows and cast a gaze toward him. Lurk. The tech priests immediately gathered around the central platform, chanting binary prayers to awaken the dreadnought. The steam spewed by the machine's activation sprayed onto Margot, and the turning of gears and the dull hum of the cogitator sounded. Withdraw, Margot said to the tech priests, all recording is forbidden. A crimson light rose in the Contemptor dreadnought's eye lens, and the walker's sensors collected the rune information from the Astartes helmet. He spat out Grakcharel, roaring in question, who allowed you to wear my cloak? Gear, Margot said softly. Gear, the Contemptor dreadnought Lurk fell into memory, a dull strategist but a good hand with an axe. The last time I saw you, you were still a sergeant. You are worthy of my cloak. Are you the one leading the Unbroken now? My lord, thank you for your praise, Margot responded. I am disturbing you because of Angron. Margot told Lurk, the Legion Master of the Warhounds, about the series of events since his last awakening, recounting the decimations and the tragedy in the Hall of Triumph. Lurk had fallen 30 years before the discovery of Nuceria. In that battle, he led the Warhounds to crush an Orc empire that enslaved 7 star systems. He was a tactical genius, always the first to step onto the battlefield and the last to leave the fight. He would never let the Warhounds down, inspiring them toward victory. After Lurk was dug out from a mountain of greenskin corpses, with only a breath of life remaining, he was entombed in a Contemptor dreadnought. His successor, Gear, along with Karn and other high-ranking members of the Legion, unanimously agreed to grant him the honor of First Master to show their respect. He commanded the growing ranks of dreadnought ancients. Your plan? Lurk asked in a heavy voice. Margot said worriedly, the future of the Legion is at stake. Once we are implanted with the nails, we will be on a path of no return. Lurk took heavy steps and came before Margot. You know who should lead the Legion, our Gene Father. He is a Primarch. Margot held his head high, facing Lurk. I respect him more than anyone, but the path he is leading us on is a dead end. I cannot follow his arrangements simply because of my admiration. Lurk clenched his giant fist. Angron is not Nimrod, not Gilliman, not Vulcan. He does not tolerate challenges, yet you openly defy him. I am talking about becoming the first legion to rebel against a Primarch. Such a crime will invite punishment. The Emperor himself taught us obedience. He has already purged his own progeny, including everyone within the Legion. Do not think the World Eaters will not invite such a misfortune. If disobeying Angron will provoke the Emperor's wrath, then what would he think of a legion driven mad by the nails? Margot asked. Lurk fell silent for a moment. I cannot fathom his mind. I can only remember him before the unification of Terra. The things he required us to do for him to complete the unification. As long as the galaxy is still under his command, as long as his goals are achieved and his ambitions realized, I really don't know if the Emperor of Mankind would care about the means required to achieve those goals. Do you really think we will be better off after being implanted with the nails? Margot pressed. After being silent for a dozen seconds, Lurk raised his clawed iron fist. Take me to see Surik. I want to get the answer from his own mouth. Gulan saw two figures, one large and one small, on the screen. As my lord said, Margot and Lurk. The Scarlet Scholars figure flashed, disappearing from his spot with a whoosh. Under the dim lights of the corridor, Margot gripped his short-handled battle axe and walked side by side with the Contemptor Dreadnought. He had already asked Standard-Bearer Astakos to confirm that Captain Kaurog of the 21st Company was temporarily stalling the Primarch attendant, Captain Karn of the 8th Assault Company, by discussing matters such as the Legion's future, the Butcher's Nails, and the Gene Father. As long as he and Lurk killed Surik and destroyed those nails of his, they could save the Legion. Surik was just an apothecary. Traveling with the first master of the War Hounds, failure was impossible. Margot suddenly halted his steps and looked overhead. The dim light was tinged with a haze. It seemed like the moon. The matching word flashed through Margot's mind, but he felt it increasingly strange. He had never seen light like this. Thump. Lurk noticed Margot's movement and stopped in confusion. Captain of the Unbroken, what happened? Since being entombed in the Dreadnought sarcophagus, his perception relied on the aspects rather than his senses. The light. Before Margot could finish, a ghostly shadow flitted into his eyes. His superhuman vision could barely capture this phantom. He raised the short-handled battle axe in his hand and swung at the shadow. Whoosh! The battle axe hit nothing but air, and a sharp pain shot through his neck. Scarlet Scholar, Gulan Surik had darted to his side, raising his Narthecium gauntlet, its probe humming as it tore into Margot's neck. Nusarian anesthetic was injected into Margot's neck. Boom! Margot crashed onto the deck. Surik, the Contemptor Dreadnought, identified the helmet's runes and cried out in surprise. The chief apothecary's speed was actually so terrifying, he had never seen anyone so swift. Even Karn was not this fast. Only the Primarch Angron would possess such swift speed. The Contemptor Dreadnought's mechanical components roared as his lightning-wreathed fist and claws crashed toward Surik. The veteran, Potions Professor, raised his arm, and a bottle of potion poured over his armor. His figure disappeared from where he stood as if erased by an eraser. Psychic power. Lurk turned his body, arms spread wide to expand his defensive range. Peesh pshh, arcs of electricity shot out from the ventilation ducts. The same arcs that had punished Angron and the slaves countless times whistled as they tore through the defensive field, exposing Lurk's bare head. Lurk spun around and raised his giant fist. Lightning-like electricity tore through the pipes overhead. Crack crack crack, in a series of explosions, the silver spheres placed inside the pipes were torn to shreds. Hazy moonlight fell, shining upon the back of Lurk's head. The Narthecium gauntlet slammed into the Contemptor Dreadnought's neck. Surik is actually this strong, the first master of the Warhounds thought in shock as the head of the Contemptor Dreadnought, who had been awake for less than a day, slumped powerlessly. Warband 746, the corroded Butcher's Nails. In the central apothecary chamber, the operating table locked Margot's head and neck in place. The World Eater's chief apothecary, Gulan Surik, shaved Margot's scalp clean and applied disinfectant gel and anti-suppuration agents to ensure the skin was in a sterile state. The bionic eye of a medical servitor emitted a red laser to scan Margot's scalp, measuring and locating the precise positions where the nails would be implanted, then used laser beams to leave several faint, almost invisible scar markers at the determined spots. After the medical servitor stepped back, Gulan began the surgery. The bone saw and drill in his hands hummed as they cut through flesh and bone. The chief apothecary skillfully removed an entire piece of blood-streaked skull and placed it on the table beside the operating bed. Praise my lord, Gulan chanted silently, picking up the implant bestowed by the Black Emperor and giving it another scrutinizing look. It was a cord-like metal spike, slightly shorter than a World Eater's palm. Each spike had an interface at its end, and its top was wrapped in a braid-like wisp of electrical wiring. It seemed no different from when he had sacrificed to the Black Emperor. My lord ordered me to sacrifice and then bestowed it back. There must be a profound meaning in this. It is simply that I cannot fathom my lord's great power. Gulan stopped trying to understand the Black Emperor's might and began the procedure. The first hammer strike was clear and crisp. With the second, the long nail sank into the flesh, accompanied by a faint sound of piercing meat. Following that, the chief apothecary's movements inevitably became slow and cautious. Amidst short, light taps, he drove the nails completely into Margot's cranium. As a row of cut and sutured connection ports lined the back of Margot's head, his fingers trembled slightly. The intense pain was causing the Nuceria anesthetic to gradually fail. The various cables extending from the tops of the nails were connected in segments to a silver cable, forming a long metal braid at the back of Margot's head. Margot's pulse began to race. Tick, tick, the muscles in his face spasmed and twitched, and his head began to twist and tilt. Buzz, 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 the cacophony made Margot exceptionally irritable, and a blood-red hue flooded his mind. His nerves caught fire, his blood boiled. Margot woke from the thick scent of rust, the roar from his throat sounding like the venting howl of a beast. Gulan caught the beastly scarlet in his eyes, a flash of surprise crossing his gaze. He hadn't expected the butcher's nails to drive even the calm Margot into a frenzy. He could only bring forward the testing of his research results. The Scarlet Scholar's figure vanished in a whoosh, a spray gun from within an adamantium case now held in his hand. Dragging an afterimage, he returned to the operating table, already flicking the dial to lower the output frequency. Gulan aimed the gun's nozzle, which looked like layers of overlapping maws, at Margot's head. Based on Nephilim technology, a resonant sonic wave, undetectable by an Astartes, poured into Margot's mind. The buzzing subsided, and the scarlet in Margot's eyes gradually faded. His pupils reappeared within his eyes, slowly focusing. Surik, what did you do to me? The butcher's nails, Gulan's voice came through the communication grill of his helmet, piercing Margot's ears like a thunderclap. No, Margot roared loudly. I will not become a beast like Angron. Margot, calm down. Gulan raised a hand to pin Margot down, his strength so great that the World Eater could not move. He held up the spray gun in his hand. Think carefully with your mind. Just now, I used this to help you recover your sanity. Margot followed the words and reminisced, recalling the noisy, scarlet world and the rippling, clear sound. His body stopped struggling. A look of anticipation appeared on his face. You mean, you can suppress the rage of the butcher's nails? Father. Gulan shook his head. I don't know. The ones in your head look the same as his on the outside, but there are significant differences in the structure. I am not certain I can control it, he said in a deep voice, following the Black Emperor's decree when he saw Margot's gaze darken. Margot, stay patient. We still have a way out. Trust me. Gulan's eyes suddenly narrowed as he saw a faint, ethereal black mist. Fine. Margot's tone was soothing, as if he were falling asleep. You're right. Black mist. Gulan felt as if he had been struck by lightning, a thought flashing through his mind. Could it be, the great power my lord exerted upon the butcher's nails? Margot, who was sworn to resist the Gene Father Angron and had come to assassinate me, was persuaded by me just like that. At the same moment, in the fourth layer of the Nation of Disorder, Nimrod sat high upon his throne. With no other major affairs recently, he had been keeping a close eye on Gulan's progress. This concerned his plan to divide the World Eaters into 3 parts along with Khorne and Angron. The situation was developing even more smoothly than in his memories. His intervention had caused Angron to fall into a deeper sleep than in his memories. Perhaps because time was more pressing, Margot hadn't been able to mobilize a third of the World Eaters' captains to join his failed assassination plot as he had in Nimrod's memory. Only he and Lurk had gone to the apothecary to attack. Margot also hadn't been killed by Karn as he was in memory. The first to be implanted with the butcher's nails was not Karn. After seeing Gulan successfully restore Margot's sanity, Nimrod was almost certain that Gulan had fulfilled his orders. He had developed a spray gun that could, to some extent, restore the sanity of a World Eater. The berserk Margot was awakened. He didn't lose control and go on a rampage through the Conqueror like Karn did after his implantation. Seeing Margot hesitate slightly, Nimrod spread his spirituality, leveraging the power of the Sephira to exert influence on the linked butcher's nails. Margot, who was corroded to a certain degree, followed the will of the Master of the Black Mist, Nimrod's will, and dismissed his final doubts, remaining patient. The plan to divide the World Eaters into 3 is basically fine. World Eaters like Drieger and Margot were already clear-headed, not brainlessly loyal. With them plus the World Eaters who have already been implanted with corroded gene seed, there are about 2,300 people. The number of gene seeds he had originally corroded was far higher than this, but some of those people had been victims of Angron's decimation. The fact that the World Eaters currently only numbered around 10,000 was also attributable to Angron. Although except for the First Legion, the Primarchs' legions were all between 10 and 30,000 when they returned. Angron only returned in the year 899. The Warhounds conscripted from Terra and modified on the Moon exceeded 20,000. But the World Eaters were forced to quickly complete the 31 little conquests, suffering massive casualties and being constantly subjected to decimation. After Angron's return, their numbers didn't rise but fell. Before the successful development of the Butcher's Nails, they only had 10,000 left, just as in his memory. The situation changed somewhat after the successful development of the Butcher's Nails, as Angron began to respect the World Eaters slightly more. He began to donate gene seed frequently, which was one of the 2 key factors that allowed the World Eaters to grow to a scale of 150,000 by the Great Birthday celebration. The other factor was Angron personally streamlining the recruitment and training processes, and continuously recruiting new soldiers from conquered feudal and feral worlds without regard for those worlds' futures. He wasn't like Mortarion, who only recruited from barbarous and had requirements for consuming toxins. The growth of the World Eaters to over 130,000 proved that as long as the standards were set low enough, a large number of new soldiers could be trained. The same situation applied to Lorgar, who received instructions from the Chaos Gods after his pilgrimage to the Eye of Terror, and Dorn, who dealt with the rebel threat during the Great Birthday celebration. Gulan's successful replication of the Butcher's Nails will certainly increase his power within the World Eaters. With the support of Drieger, Margot, and others, and as the chief apothecary in control of gene seed and Butcher's Nails implantation, he should be able to sacrifice even more gene seed and Butcher's Nails. Among the future 130,000, those with double corrosion should exceed 50,000. While Nimrod pondered, he stepped out into the 3rd layer of space and picked up the dice of prophecy. Information he knew about Valhalla flashed through his mind. Ultima segmentum, Valhalla. It was once a verdant paradise world of temperate forests and vast, fertile plains, but shortly before the end of the Age of Strife, a massive comet struck the planet and forever destroyed this paradise. The main body of the comet hit the vast oceans that spanned most of the planet, and eventually, the scalding seawater, sky-blotting steam, and dust obscured the sky, causing the planet's ambient temperature to drop rapidly to freezing point. After all the information about Valhalla flashed through Nimrod's mind. After he quickly reviewed it once, he chanted in his heart. The star chart from Carium Gate to Valhalla. After chanting it 11 times, he reached out and tossed the dice of prophecy. Nimrod memorized the star chart, input it into a data crystal, and then stepped back into the 4th layer of space. He spread his spirituality to touch a sphere of light, pulling Lord Atoms of the 4th battle group into the Nation of Disorder. With a thought from Nimrod, the data crystal flew in front of Atoms. Lead your team to Valhalla immediately, it shall be your warband's recruitment world. Besides Beyonders of the death pathway having cold bodies and emotions, Valhallans grew up in a cruel environment, and their attitude of disregarding their own lives and those of others allowed them to better face death and adapt to warband culture. Of course, the attitude of disregarding death still had to be controlled within a certain range. They couldn't massacre civilians and pillage allies like the Marines' malevolent. I follow your will, Atoms responded respectfully and was immediately swallowed by the black mist. Chapter 747, Intercepting Horus, the entire set of STC construction machinery. 940. M30. In the 3rd layer of the Nation of Disorder, Nimrod picked up the dice of prophecy, contemplating what to divine. After a moment's thought, he decided to forego the current plan and instead prepare for the colonized new district. Better to divine Aureus first, the world that was originally destined to be destroyed by the fallen Horus. As Nimrod whispered, all the information he knew about Aureus flashed through his mind. Planet Aureus, home to standard template constructs brought from Terra, preserved intact to this day. They possess fortresses built with ancient technology, finding methods from their databases to counter threats according to combat needs. Their soldiers are equipped with weapons similar to standard model bolters, wearing shiny power armor, and they possess light solar generators capable of meeting the power demands of the Epsilon 5 Forge complex. After the details of Aureus's situation flashed through his mind, Nimrod silently chanted in his heart the star map leading from the Carium Gate to Aureus. After chanting it 11 times, he reached out and tossed the dice of prophecy. The triangular pyramid tumbled several times in the air before a scene, appearing like a holographic projection, unfolded before him. Nimrod recorded the star map and input it into a data crystal. He then took a step forward, arriving at the fourth layer of space. Seated high upon his throne, Nimrod extended his spirituality, reaching Tierney, leader of the Marauders, and Maria Kurnikova, leader of the Assassins, and commanded. Board the Wanquan Shadow. This time, Nimrod would rely on ordinary Beyonders rather than the Order Shadows. In his memory, when the Imperium of Man first made contact with Aureus, the regime immediately showed goodwill and joined with great enthusiasm. However, the fallen Horus Lupercal abandoned his usual diplomatic methods and blew the head off the technological civilization's Forge console with a single shot. Subsequently, before Aureus was annihilated by the sons of Horus, they destroyed their entire preserved set of STCs. Horus only obtained 2 STCs, new power armor and light solar generators, using them as leverage to ensure the loyalty of the then Mars Forge director, Kelber Hal. Nimrod wanted the full set of STC templates from Aureus. Although it didn't contain every STC in human history, it was a complete set of independently developed and functioning STCs, on an entirely different level from the partial STCs discovered previously. In the dimension of space fortresses, the Ramirez-class star fort surpassed Aureus. But measured by quantity in certain specific fields, Aureus was the richest in his memory. This dimension was only lesser than the databases of Mars and the Hope, a relic of the dark age of technology. It might even be more abundant than the one the Van Sar family would obtain from the crash on Necromunda in the future. Nimrod stepped out, returning to the real world, the first standard month of the year 941. Planet Aureus held a grand and solemn ceremony, warmly welcoming the visit of their lost human kin. The Black Aquila shuttle landed slowly, and the newly appointed Legion standard bearer, Jirgil, was the first to step off the deck. In his hands, he held the banner of the Order Shadows, the banner of Vostonia, crafted for Nimrod by the human emperor's artisans and gifted to him by the emperor. The oath the new guardian had taken a year ago was, to guard the banner of Vostonia unto death, ensuring the name of the Black Emperor inscribed upon it is never defiled. His former position as captain of the 2nd Company of the 8th Battle Group was succeeded by Joe Vitara, who hailed from the ruling family of Ventilion. He was half a head shorter than Knight Lord Thierry Vieira, and a third of a head shorter than the fellow guardian, the Kazarkan Pierre Wright. Along with Buka, he was the third tallest among the Order Shadows. Nimrod then walked down the deck, scanning the warriors lined up on both sides to welcome him. They wore shiny silver power armor and held weapons extremely similar to standard model bolters, but their magazines had been removed as a sign of welcome to the visitors. Were it not for their partially mechanically augmented bodies being slightly shorter than an ordinary Astartes, they could be described as mirror image Astartes. An envoy in red robes leaned on a golden staff topped with a gear ornament. His face was half flesh and half machine, and his eyes were 2 shining emeralds. His body, face, and decorations were all reminiscent of a tech priest of the Adeptus Mechanicus on Mars. A smile bloomed on the Aureus envoy's face as he bowed to the towering giant approaching him. It is a profound honor. Are you the Primarch of the Order Shadows, Lord Nimrod? I am. And your name, sir? Nimrod replied with a smile. I am Emery Salinico, Forge Consul of the Aureus Technocracy. On behalf of my people, I welcome you to our world. Nimrod cast a scrutinizing glance at Emery's mechanically augmented body. A semi-mechanized body, no wonder he could live for another 60-odd years. The unlucky soul whose head was blown off by the fallen Horus, the first sign of his drastic change in temperament. If Horus hadn't fallen, with his love for diplomacy, he would have treated you as an honored guest to prove the meaning of the Great Crusade, the reunion of long-lost brothers in the galaxy. He reigned in his thoughts. The fate of Emery and Aureus had changed. Nimrod said with a smile, "Emery, please allow me to call you by your name. Let me introduce Lady Maria Kurnikova, her family rules Vostonia for me." The demoness of pleasure, dressed in a black lace-trimmed gown, stepped forward. She felt the restrained, burning gazes of the warriors falling upon her. Compared to her time on Terra, Maria had adapted more naturally to the role of a noble lady. Her tall frame swayed gracefully as she displayed a reserved smile. "Lady Kurnikova, welcome." The mentor of disorder watched Emery kiss the back of Maria's hand. Both he and Kurnikova would exert their charm on different levels to influence the high-ranking officials of Aureus. After welcoming the beautiful blonde lady, Emery turned respectfully toward the statue-like giant and spoke. "Lord Nimrod, please allow me to lead the way. The chief consul and the other consuls await your arrival at the Forge Hall." "Consul Emery, the honor is mine." Nimrod followed Emery into the ranks of the silver-armored warriors. "They are the pillars of Aureus, the elite of our army." Pride radiated from Emery's face, feeling honored to be escorted by the Brotherhood. Maria Kurnikova, whose body had been modified to stand over 2 meters tall, looked at the silver-armored warriors who were close to her own height while in their armor. "They wear armor similar to that of the Order Shadows." "As it should be," Emery replied with a smile. "The construction machinery our ancestors brought from Terra remains the core of our society to this day, providing us with the blessings of technology. No matter how long we are apart, we always tend to produce creations of similar form." Nimrod's eyes lit up. Standard template construction machinery. That was exactly his goal. Despite the good atmosphere, it would still take a considerable amount of time to win over the entire high command of Aureus and obtain the full set of STCs. It was still necessary for Tierney to begin his operations. Nimrod boarded the vehicle the Oriens had prepared for him. It was similar to a Rhino armored personnel carrier. Even though the Oriens had prepared a spacious ceremonial vehicle, it still felt somewhat cramped. The vehicle roared to life amidst a Terra-like festive atmosphere and drove toward the Iron Fortress. With a smile on his face, Nimrod waved to the enthusiastic citizens of Aureus. He gazed at the approaching Iron Fortress, his eyes brightening. The entire fortress was embedded into the bedrock, its firing positions bristling with howitzers. The heavy gates slowly opened, and 2 rows of warriors in shining silver armor stood in neat formation. The crimson silhouette of Karn flashed through Nimrod's mind. The World Eaters had destroyed this fortress for the Warmaster, slaughtering the people of Aureus. Chapter 748, Dream Stealer, my lord shall guide you to realize your ideals. Aureus, the Iron Fortress. The 3rd standard month of year 941. Inside the silver spire at the summit, Nimrod stood before the window with his hands behind his back. As expected, obtaining the standard template construct machinery is not that easy. Over the past 2 months, Nimrod had used diplomatic opportunities to corrupt 2 of the 13 consuls, while Maria Kurnikova, the demoness of pleasure, had also brought 1 consul under her control. After gaining a grasp of the situation in Aureus, he learned that the consuls had clearly defined areas of responsibility. Mechanical consul Andoni controlled the machinery for the standard template constructs. However, Andoni rarely appeared in public, making it difficult to force his submission without resorting to extreme measures. His eyes flashed as he thought to himself, "It is time for Tierney, the Dream Stealer, to move." 1 standard hour later, Tierney unfurled the wings of his Eld-type Lord Hunter suite, its hundreds of premium stacked gold alloy plates rotating into position. Using mimetic camouflage, he rose silently from within the layered fortress under the cover of concealment. Tierney followed the runes within his tactical goggles, ascending slowly toward the target. By the Black Emperor's decree, Maria Kurnikova, an honored guest of Aureus, had confirmed the whereabouts of the reclusive mechanical consul Andoni. He would be resting in mansion number 4 of his 5 residences for the next 5 hours. Over the past 2 months, Tierney had already become familiar with most of this iron fortress. Overall, it bore some resemblance to the Narian Mar hive city in the far north of Vostonia, with a biting chill permeating every corner. Unlike the natural cold of his homeland, the iron fortress was composed of countless bunkers and defensive towers with high walls. Only tech priests and the tech marines of the Astartes legions, renowned for their construction, could build such a military stronghold. While lost in thought, Tierney had already climbed over 500 meters, reaching the upper levels of the iron fortress. His gaze swept over an area marked by a band of yellow fluorescence, which enclosed a weapon resembling a basilisk autocannon. The people of Aureus are about to change their deployed weaponry. Tierney had traveled to many worlds, but even on Terra and Vostonia, he had never seen an iron fortress like this one in Aureus. Every day, some sector of this fortress would have its deployed weapons replaced. For Aureus, which possessed the production capacity of a forge world, producing weapons was not difficult. However, replacing the weapon systems of a massive fortress was a colossal engineering undertaking, involving energy distribution, impacts on the defense system, and many other factors. The Aureus Iron Fortress, however, was like an assembled model, capable of flexible adaptive adjustments. No wonder my lord ordered me to obtain their complete set of construction templates. As Tierney pondered, the rune distance rapidly shrank to within 1,000 meters, and a defensive spire resembling a nest tower, rooted in the layered bedrock, came into view. The Dream Stealer twisted his lithe body and landed carefully on the spire. The sensors of the Eld Lord Hunter suite constantly captured various readings of the surrounding steel, temperature, form. The cogitator array drove the armor's mimetic system to project the same readings. Tierney climbed silently, reaching the top of the spire. The distance between him and the target shrank to within 100 meters. Tierney stopped 10 meters outside a porthole. The Dream Stealer could already see a faint, eerie light. He crouched slightly, bringing the full view of the porthole into his sight. The Dream Stealer's eyes flashed, and spheres appeared in his mind, emitting dense layers of scanning beams. The people of Aureus possess advanced technological capabilities. Andoni is a high-ranking official. The security sensors in his room might detect me. Infiltrating the room is too risky. As the Dream Stealer considered his options, his gaze fell upon a shining cluster of light. The valuable item captured by his exalted observation looked like a metal key. The secret key to activate the standard template construct. Brought from Terra, it uses a commemorative ancient design. After locking onto his target, the Dream Stealer activated his spirit vision and focused on the body wearing it. Clusters of brilliance suddenly rose within the Dream Stealer's eyes. In a gray dream, an exploding furnace took the lives of 4 technicians and dozens of laborers. In an orange memory, a young Andoni sat before a holographic screen, looking up at it. The Dream Stealer quickly scanned Andoni's entire world, which was filled with study, labor, machinery, and technology. Pure, like a completely mechanized Martian monk. Among the many light clusters, the Dream Stealer saw a glowing red one, which was Andoni's ideal. To fully utilize construction machinery to create mechanical items and build a beautiful future for humanity. My lord shall guide you to realize your ideals, Tierney whispered soundlessly. The Dream Stealer then identified his other target. Inside a shimmering silver cluster of light was a massive silver sphere. It was surrounded by cables that looked like giant pythons. The standard template construct machinery. The Dream Stealer straightened his back, standing steadily on the surface of the tower. Tierney gently raised his hands. After becoming a Dream Stealer, his steel range had increased to 120 meters. The scope of steel had also expanded from physical objects to non-material realms such as memories, dreams, and ideals. Tierney, the Dream Stealer, had already experimented with it. He could even steal a thought the target was about to put into practice, causing them to lapse into a brief daze. However, he could not keep the stolen thoughts, and he himself had to perform the corresponding action in place of the target. The Dream Stealer clenched both hands simultaneously. The silver light cluster flew toward his right hand and was immediately absorbed into his spirit body. He now knew the location of the construction machinery and the layers of identification rune codes. In his left palm, a silver secret key the size of a normal person's hand appeared. Tierney's right hand pulled out a mandala-shaped secret key the size of an Astarte's palm from his waist. The Rozicki key, bestowed by the Black Emperor. A secret key named after Rozicki Czech, the Forge Lord of the Order Shadows. Tierney pressed the 2 keys together, and the Rozicki key enveloped the silver key. After waiting for 11 seconds, Tierney pulled his arms apart and returned the Rozicki key to his waist. The Dream Stealer gazed at Andoni, and with a graceful flick of his wrist, the silver key returned silently to Andoni's waist. The dream stealer slid his body soundlessly, detaching from the spire. He rapidly returned to the middle level of the iron fortress, entered the altar in his hiding place, held up the Roziki key with both hands, and began reciting a prayer. The Black Emperor of the Order Shadows. By the second recitation of the prayer, black mist rose, and an invisible, illusory door opened. A gale was generated out of thin air at the altar, and the mandala-shaped Roziki key shot into the illusory door. In the fourth level of the Nation of Disorder, Nimrod sat high upon his throne, turning the secret key in his hand. The Roziki key was a key-making technology he had ordered the Forge Lord to excavate when he went to the world that was originally to be named Orpheus. In his memory, this type of key was originally called the Orpheus key, a unique key held by the Orpheus Archon. The cogitator engine of the Orpheus key could analyze unknown situations and provide solutions for the user. Now that he had collected the key rune data from mechanical console Andoni, it could be replicated and pass verification. Nimrod then returned to the real world and handed the Orpheus key to an artisan, ordering him to replicate the key. Chapter 749, Mutation of the Mechanical Console, Operation Prometheus is about to fail. In the fourth layer of the Nation of Disorder, Nimrod extended his spirituality to touch the deep, dark sphere of light belonging to Dream Stealer, Tierney. With a thought, he cast parchment scrolls made by the Scrolls Professors, led by Chief Librarian Thomas, along with keys replicated by the artisans, into the invisible, illusory door. In a hideout in the upper area of the Iron Fortress, Tierney watched as items flew out from the illusory door, almost covering the black onyx altar. He saw the Black Emperor, seated high upon the throne deep within the black mist, speak with majesty. In 1 standard hour, Andoni will rest for 5 standard hours. There are markings on the scroll straps, recite them in the Dun language to use them. Be sure to obtain both the standard template data within the manufacturing center and the equations within the construction machinery simultaneously. Tierney clasped his hands in a reverse grip, according to your will. After the black mist receded, Tierney praised the Black Emperor once more before standing up to quickly identify the scrolls. A moment later, he drew a ritual knife and unfastened the Euclidean sigil. Tierney placed the scrolls and the palm-sized keys into crystal cases connected by iron chains. Having completed 15 modification surgeries, he pulled the rope and smoothly dragged the cable car, sliding, quickly descending 3 floors along the spire's passage. Tierney arrived before 29, Prometheus, wearing Yeld-type Lord Hunter suites. They were already fully equipped and ready to go. Tierney walked to the center. The Prometheus instinctively turned their gazes toward the crystal cases surrounding him. The Prometheus instinctively sensed that there were precious items inside. Synchronized time, 53 minutes and 26 seconds past the standard hour. Code name, Operation Prometheus, initiate. The Dream Stealer had named this operation based on his fire-like ideals within the Mechanical Council. Just like Prometheus stealing fire in the ancient myths of Vostonia. While the Prometheus calibrated the timers embedded in their eyepieces, Tierney emphasized the operational procedures of the Prometheus plan. Infiltrate the main control center, use the scrolls to subdue the personnel, use the keys to open the database, use the data crystals to record the information, and finally delete the log records. If there is enough time, use the backup data crystals to record a backup. Tierney looked around at everyone, no questions. Depart in 12 minutes. The Prometheus stepped forward, found their crystal cases, and slotted the palm-sized keys, 2 lightless data crystals, and the matching connectors into their waists. Psychers can directly record and identify the contents of data crystals, others must rely on auxiliary equipment to record and read through a cogitator array. They checked the straps of the 5 scrolls again, and after confirmation, hung them in different positions on their black Yeld-type suites. 30 figures leapt silently from their hiding place, flying toward the mechanical spire that Dream Stealer Tierney had confirmed from Andoni's mind. The interlocking plates of high-grade auramide alloy turned, allowing the black, large birds, cloaked by the mimicry system to weave through layers of defensive fortifications. Tierney landed silently on the mechanical spire, while the 29, Prometheus, landed separately at the manufacturing center connected to the mechanical spire via data cables. The construction machinery of the Aureus people does not directly manufacture mechanical items. They used data cables to connect the construction machinery to the cogitator arrays within the manufacturing center, performing different categories of manufacturing. Bolters, silver power armor, solar generators. Tierney landed at the top of the nest tower. Following Andoni's memories, he found the massive silver machine. It was a cylindrical hull 5.2 kilometers high and 2.6 kilometers in diameter. The Dream Stealer activated his spirit vision and found the only person in the hall, the mechanical consul of Aureus, Andoni. He stood there, because the distance exceeded 120 meters, the Dream Stealer could not be certain what Andoni was thinking at that moment. He could only judge from the blue presented by the astral body that Andoni was currently thinking. Time passed second by second until there were only 15 seconds left on the timer's countdown. Andoni walked out from the depths of the cylindrical hull and headed toward the exit. Tierney watched him walk toward the elevator and press the braking rune. Just when he thought everything was going smoothly, Andoni suddenly turned his body thoughtfully and walked back. Tierney was startled. An accident had occurred in the plan. Andoni, who strictly followed the schedule, had temporarily changed his actions. He glanced at it. The timer's digits were only at 1 second. It was too late to temporarily change the plan. If Andoni returned to the construction machinery, he would inevitably discover the data download. Operation Prometheus would fail. The Dream Stealer quickly raised his right hand and aimed at Andoni. Chaotic brilliance shone. Having just checked the light spheres of Andoni's memories and ideals not long ago, he instantly found the pale blue sphere among them. The Dream Stealer saw Andoni's thought. Equation 293, there is a new inference 59. So it's a decryption equation. This is exactly my mission. This is exactly my mission. The Dream Stealer suddenly clenched his fist, and the pale blue light sphere shot into his brain. Andoni's footsteps paused, his mind going blank. Ding dong. The elevator's chime sounded. Andoni woke as if from a dream and turned to enter the elevator. At the same moment, the Dream Stealer was forced to take the place of the stolen target, deriving the equation for Andoni. Without Tierney's active thought, the brain of a veteran cryptologist began to spin rapidly on its own, a series of dense numbers and symbols flashing and arranging themselves in his mind. There must be a basic equation. Driven almost by instinct, Tierney quickly pried open the shutters, nimbly flipped into the spire, and walked quickly toward the construction machinery. His gaze swept over the interlaced silver and chrome pipes on the walls, and then his eyes were pulled toward his feet as if by something. The silver decorations were carved with dense and complex algorithms, with 1,000 equations per square meter. All the standard construction templates within the construction machinery, their production purposes, application ranges, adaptive adjustments, and production processes, all these secrets were hidden within the wide, blank floor, among the 40.56 million equations. Tierney took a deep breath and quickly entered the Thelema mindset state, allowing himself to execute the plan. The Prometheus could obtain the standard construction templates from the cogitator arrays in the manufacturing center, but the database did not contain the equation array of the construction machinery. This was the task the Black Emperor had assigned to him. The Dream Stealer, Tierney bit his lips tightly, and his usually nimble hands tremblingly fished out a scanner embedded with a data crystal from his waist, aiming it at the floor on both sides. The Dream Stealer's will shattered, following his own thoughts. His dark eyes stared straight at the floor, searching for equation 293. At the same time, in manufacturing center number 4, Prometheus silently followed the data cables and found the main control room of the manufacturing center. He silently slid into the main control room through the gaps in the data cables, flying past cogitators and cables one by one. The Prometheus took out a parchment scroll from his chest. As he threw out the scroll, he whispered the same word in the Dun language as on the strap. Slumber. Pure black light rose, and the eyelids of the operators wearing silver work clothes grew heavy, their bodies becoming weighted. Thump, thump. Seeing the operators all fall, the Prometheus immediately went to the ancient cogitator in the center of the main control room, connected by data cables. He inserted the palm-sized metal key in his hand into the slot on the cogitator's console. Green text quickly leapt up on the screen. Highest authority identified. Greetings, Mechanical Consul Andoni. Please issue instructions. The Prometheus pulled the green operation menu and selected the item to download the data library. Executing command. Please connect the data interface. The Prometheus inserted the interface connected to the data crystal into the cogitator's cable. The lightless crystal lit up with points of light. With every passing second, it grew a bit brighter. At the same moment the Prometheus began downloading the standard templates. Dream Stealer, Tierney walked past silver pipes and bypassed chrome chambers within the bright white ceramic structure. He finally found the 1 square meter space in the center that recorded the most core 1000 equations. As the veteran cryptologist leaned over, he found equation 293 among the first to 1000th equations. The Dream Stealer took a deep breath. The thoughts in his mind were almost driving him crazy. The veteran cryptologist stared at the series of numbers and symbols, his brain spinning rapidly. String after string of numbers and symbols leapt up in his dark eyes, scrolling on an invisible screen similar to a chronological screen. 33 seconds later, the veteran cryptologist sat down on the floor covered in equations. The Dream Stealer let out a long breath. He had finally completed Andoni's thought. Tierney immediately felt a needle-like pain in his temples. The clash between will and external thoughts is too painful. He sighed slightly before standing up, spreading his wings, and flying past quickly, scanning and recording equations that had not yet been recorded by the data crystal. He flew one lap around the cylindrical hall. The first 1000 equations recorded by the data crystal in his left hand were the same as the last equation recorded by the data crystal in his right palm. Tierney put the data crystal, which was even brighter than the silver-white lumen lamps overhead, back at his waist. From the communication bead embedded in his ear came the voices of 29 successful operations. Tierney walked quickly to the cogitator and inserted the key. In a series of green menus, he found the data log item, and after entering, selectively deleted the data records uploaded by the 29 manufacturing centers since the start of the operation. P.S. The 40.56 million equations are based on the Men of Iron STC found by political commissar Gaunt in the official novel, the first and only, which was calculated to have 1.5 million equations within a 500-meter diameter. By the way, as mentioned before, the Men of Iron STC, the Hope, and other items that can be taken after the Great Birthday Celebration will all be taken after the Great Birthday Celebration. Chapter 750. Angron doesn't care about your lives, he just needs real warriors. 942. M30. Dorset System, the Houndstooth of the World Eaters Legion's 18th Company. Wrapped in power armor, Chief Apothecary Galan Surik looked proudly at the crowd gathered on the deck. 40% of the World Eaters Company commanders attended this gathering. Nearly half of them had been handpicked and gathered by Galan himself. Gretel, captain of the 9th Company, had once proposed giving up on persuading Angron to accept them and having Karn succeed as the Legion commander. Theirs, the former chief librarian of the librarian department that Angron had ordered disbanded. The other half were captains who had spontaneously gathered around Margot, captain of the 18th Company, after he courageously resisted the Gene Father's decimation order in the Hall of Triumph. Korig, captain of the 21st Company, Captra, captain of the 37th Company, and even a potential heavyweight, the first among the War Hounds, former Legion commander Lurk, who led the Legion's dreadnoughts. He showed Lurk the situation with the butcher's nails and, together with Margot, persuaded Lurk to observe the state of the Legion and their actions before making a final decision. Galan was confident he could persuade Lurk to follow him onto a truly bright path. While he was lost in thought, Margot, standing in the center of the crowd, turned the topic to Galan. We should pay our respects to the chief apothecary, he has found a way out for our desperate legion. Since we implanted the butcher's nails, the Gene Father's attitude toward us has improved significantly. After we conquered Dorset, he personally simplified the recruitment and training processes, he has begun to lead the Legion like a true Legion commander. Amidst the joyful crowd, Vers stood in a corner with a melancholy expression. Librarian Ioka had attempted to implant the butcher's nails, only for his body to rupture instantly. Vers still remembered the horrific psychic scream he let out before dying, as if he were enduring agonizing mental torture. Because of this, Vers understood that the structural changes to the brain made it impossible for librarians to control their own psychic powers. When they approached World Eaters with butcher's nails implants, it also caused them discomfort. Consequently, the Gene Father had directly disbanded the librarian department and driven them off the Conqueror. Theirs could now only stand in the shadows of the hall's corner, deliberately ignored by the others. The corners of Galan's mouth twitched as a scene flashed through his mind, Angron waking up and seeing the second person to complete the butcher's nails transformation, Primarch attendant Karn. Angron smiled and reached out a hand to Karn. "Come with me, my son." He led Karn to stand before him, squinting with contempt as he said, "So you made it. I thought you had been crushed by failure and would never recover. How many can you make?" Galan remembered replying confidently, "Father, producing and implanting them is but a small matter to me. I already have stable prototype replicas. Before long, they can be implanted into the entire Legion. I have also created new devices that can sober up World Eaters who fall into an uncontrollable killing frenzy." His reminder triggered the father's rage. Angron roared, "I don't need that. That was not my command." He asked impatiently, "How fast?" Sensing the urgent tone, Galan could only respond, "In a few hours, I will present to you 1,000 sons reshaped in your image." A flash of memory crossed Galan's mind, recalling Gene Father Angron leading the 8th Assault Company and warriors from other companies down to Ka, turning the entire planet into a sea of blood. He was glad that the butcher's nails implanted into these people were the replicas he and apothecaries like Bashir had quickly manufactured under Angron's pressure. He did not waste the precious nails bestowed by the Black Emperor on Karn and others who were loyal to Angron. Galan had learned from the subordinate apothecaries dispatched to the 8th Assault Company that Karn and the World Eaters had never used the spray guns he issued. They were left in the armory, covered in dust, and not even the servants had received orders to clean them. Galan had realized that Karn and the other World Eaters had already stepped onto the crimson path of blood. They didn't care at all about the negative effects of the butcher's nails. In their wanton slaughter, they would become fighting beasts just like Angron. Even if Angron frequently donated gene seed as the Black Emperor predicted. His large-scale recruitment of new recruits was not to strengthen the officer corps, but only to obtain sons who were true in his eyes, warriors just like his gladiator brothers. Galan collected his thoughts and spoke, "I will lead you onto a broad path." "You already have," Margot said loudly. Looking at the joyful crowd, Galan did not puncture their illusions. He needed time, the later they found out, the better. Since the Black Emperor had commanded them to wait, there must be an arrangement. He only needed to follow the divine oracle. After ending the gathering, Galan returned to the central apothecary deep within the Conqueror. He pushed a prepared silver-white cart, on which was placed 1/10 of the genetic material donated by the Gene Father this month. Over the past 3 standard years, Galan had slowly increased the amount of retained genetic material, attributing it to failures in modifying and implanting the butcher's nails. Angron never asked for specific numbers, he only cared about the increase in the number of new recruits. Galan changed into a black robe, pushed the silver-white cart to the altar, used a ritual knife to activate the Euclidean sigil, and then knelt on the altar to pray to the Black Emperor. A moment later, a black mist rose out of nowhere, engulfing Galan and the cart. "My lord." Galan bowed respectfully and reported the matters of the gathering. Angron needs warriors. Deep within the black mist, Nimrod, seated high upon his throne, affirmed his thoughts after hearing Galan's report. For the time being, Angron would feel a slight father-son bond with the children implanted with butcher's nails, especially Karn. But as the butcher's nails operated and the slaughter continued, his moments of lucidity would become shorter and shorter. He would grow more indifferent to his children, eventually not even caring about his legion. This was why, when Karn's friend Argel Tal asked him if implanting the butcher's nails brought the World Eaters closer to their father, he sadly muttered to himself, "No, it didn't. What a pity, I can't keep him as a laborer working for me forever." Nimrod thought with regret. He thought of how Old Man Huang also had no solution, and a bit of his regret vanished. "At least I can still read quite a bit. After the great birthday celebration, Old Man Huang will lose almost the entire 12 Legion." Nimrod looked down at Galan and gave his instructions. "You have done well, continue to proceed as such. Do not reveal my existence." Even though Angron was mad, once he discovered an anomaly, it would be difficult to handle. The World Eaters would truly play their part during the Great Birthday celebration. However, they could still be useful now. With a wave of Nimrod's hand, a shining data crystal fell into Galan's hand. You will encounter the Raffen. I need their parasitic human bodies. Nimrod needed the Raffen's parasitic bodies for research to understand them. They could also serve as divination mediums to ensure the success of his divinations. The Raffen's origin space was neither located in the real world nor in the warp like the formless abyss. The origin space was a pocket dimension, situated between the real world and the warp. Nimrod didn't know if the dice of prophecy could complete a divination based on memory alone. Before he planned to launch his scheme against the Raffen, only Angron's and Sanguinius's legions had encountered this race. He had no hidden agents within the Blood Angels, so starting with the World Eaters was most appropriate. Although besides Lion L. Johnson who annihilated the Raffen, the Raven Guard also encountered them at Ingar Asal, that was an event in 999. That was too late, being close to the time of his planned actions. As you will. The black mist swallowed Galan, sending him back to the real world. With another wave of Nimrod's hand, the silver-white cart vanished into thin air, reappearing in a palace within the first layer of space, which was already filled with carts of Angron's genetic material. He then extended his spirituality to touch the metallic spiritual orb of Forge Lord Rozicki Czech. After confirming no one was around him, he pulled him into the Nation of Disorder. My lord. After bowing respectfully, Rozicki began his report. I have studied the data crystal you bestowed. I have mastered the standard template for the Aureus people's power armor and found the relevant 1.48 million equations. Dream Stealer Tierney led the Prometheans to steal the standard template construct database and the 40.56 million equations of its principles. After the operators of each manufacturing center woke up and found they had collectively fainted, they reported it to the mechanical console. Andoni investigated but found no anomalies in the operation logs. Ultimately, the cause was attributed to a machine spirit anomaly causing their internal implants to conflict with their flesh. Nimrod then went through more than 8 months of negotiations to reach an alliance agreement with Aureus. Aureus, which would have been annihilated by the fallen Horus, had technical capabilities exceeding those of Forge Worlds and a production capacity rivaling Forge Worlds like Glia. It had now become his ally. Depart for Mars immediately and join the research and development of the new generation of power armor. You must master the entire manufacturing process of the new generation of power armor to ensure we can produce it independently. Nimrod judged that even if he had snatched Aureus first, and Horus didn't find the STC after falling, Kelberhal would still ally with him, though the relationship wouldn't be as stable. After all, since the signing of the Treaty of Olympus, Mars and many other Forge Worlds had been dissatisfied due to the constraints imposed by Old Man Huang. Nearly half of the factions on Mars yearned to overthrow the Emperor's oppression and draw closer to the Omniscia without reservation. Horus's promise to lift the bans was extremely attractive to them. This was the fundamental reason for the Martian schism. Nimrod did not pin his hopes for obtaining Mark IV armor on supplies. As you will. The Forge Lord respectfully accepted the order and was immediately sent back to the real world. Chapter 751. First the Father, then the Son. 944. M30. Nation of Disorder, Third Layer Space. Nimrod picked up the dice of prophecy. Should I divine Black Stone IV, or the artifacts that control it, the Hand of Darkness or the Eye of Night? He had decided that this divination was to prepare for the attack on the colonized New District during the Great Birthday celebration. His divination targets were centered around the Blackstone Fortress. The Eldar named the Blackstone Fortress, Val's Amulet, in the name of Val, the god of the forge. Legend held that it existed during the brutal war waged by the ancient races, the War in Heaven. In Nimrod's memory, the discovery of the first Blackstone Fortress occurred in the late 31st millennium. He could afford to wait until after the Great Birthday celebration to discover it. However, he faced an imminent threat. In his memory, Horus attacked the Cyclops star cluster right after the Istvan system campaigns. Coincidentally, Blackstone IV, later named by the Imperium, was located in the Rebo system within the Cyclops star cluster. Nimrod envisioned that even if his forces were outnumbered, the sudden appearance of Blackstone IV when the rebels attacked could turn the tide of battle. Controlling the Blackstone Fortress in advance would provide support for the defense of the Cyclops star cluster, and even the entire colonized new district. Unlike the Ramirez-class star fort, which could not move once deployed and could only defend vital star systems, the Blackstone Fortress possessed a degree of mobility. Controlling the movement of the Blackstone Fortress required two ancient alien artifacts, the Hand of Darkness and the Eye of Night. After discovering 6 Blackstone fortresses in the Gothic sector, the Imperium could not comprehend the technology within them. After a long period of study, the oilmen only managed to crack their energy systems. Although progress was limited, they utilized some of its energy to install numerous weapon systems and defensive equipment on it, using it as a naval base. Even crudely utilized, no enemy of the Imperium could engage the Blackstone Fortress in a direct firepower duel. Its defensive capability far surpassed most of the 17 naval bases in the Gothic sector. Only the sector's main naval base, the Abyss Port, could compare. In the 40th millennium, Abaddon learned the secrets of the 2 artifacts and the Blackstone Fortress from Moriana, one of the 4 founders of the Inquisition and a fallen Chaos soothsayer. In the 41st millennium, he launched the 12th Black Crusade, the Gothic War, to seize the Blackstone Fortresses. Thinking of this, Nimrod's eyes flashed. Once the colonized new district is stable, it will become the future Gothic sector. Besides Blackstone IV in the Cyclops star cluster, the remaining 5 are also within my territory. Although they haven't been discovered yet, they are mine. Abaddon, you can forget about them. Nimrod turned the triangular pyramid in his hand. Although he knew the Blackstone Fortress was in the Cyclops star cluster, the star field was vast, and he did not know the exact location of the Rebo system. The Cyclops star cluster, both now and in memory, was the first region to develop in the colonized new district due to the rich mineral resources of over 100 worlds, including Rascal. Horus coveted the industrial output of the Cyclops star cluster, which is why he headed straight for this star field after launching the rebellion. Even with the vigorous development of the Cyclops star cluster, Blackstone IV was not discovered before the Great Birthday celebration. After the Randan War ended, Flamini, the lord of the 6th Battle Group, vigorously developed the Cyclops star cluster, but he also did not luckily discover Blackstone IV. Nimrod guessed that the Blackstone Fortress was in a remote, difficult-to-navigate area within the star cluster, which is why it remained undiscovered. In reality, the star fields explored and the worlds colonized by the Imperium of Man were far fewer than the total number of planets within the Imperium's borders. A large number of planets were never discovered, and the Cyclops star cluster was no exception. If he wanted to discover it ahead of time, he still had to rely on the divination of the Dice of Prophecy. First, divine Blackstone IV. I can send the Star Fort expert, Ryan Ramirez, to study it first. As for the Hand of Darkness or the Eye of Night, I can directly gain the authority to remotely control the Blackstone Fortress. The Blackstone Fortresses are all within my territory, but Purgatory Star and Ansvald might not be. I should divine the Hand of Darkness first. After Nimrod made his decision, information about Purgatory Star flashed through his mind. There is an Eldar artifact on Purgatory Star, the Hand of Darkness. The Hand of Darkness is an alien artifact that controls the Blackstone Fortress. Everything Nimrod knew about Purgatory Star was related to the Hand of Darkness. He knew nothing else about that planet. After the information about Purgatory Star flashed through his mind, he silently recited in his heart. Star chart from the Carium Gate to Purgatory Star. After reciting it 11 times, he extended his hand and threw the Dice of Prophecy. As soon as the triangular pyramid left his hand, it was as if it were wrapped by threads, spinning much slower than when the Dice of Prophecy's cooldown time increased due to divinations involving the uniqueness ritual or similar events. Nimrod frowned slightly. The Nation of Disorder can isolate interference from the Chaos Gods and similar deities, so the divination of the Dice of Prophecy will not be affected by external forces. The current situation can only indicate that the level of the divination target is equivalent to that of a high-ranking existence. Purgatory itself might not be that special, the key should be the Hand of Darkness. The rising speed of the Dice of Prophecy was clearly slower than that of Belliker's fragments, like the Blade of Shadow. The Hand of Darkness is actually higher than Belliker's fragments. The triangular pyramid rose slowly, and just as it was about to pass its highest point, it stopped. Nimrod moved his mind, and black mist churned, surging toward the triangular pyramid. The static triangular pyramid immediately began to churn. It spun upward like a windmill, its speed gradually decreasing, but it successfully reached its highest point. The triangular pyramid spun downward and finally landed slowly in his open palm. Nimrod gazed at the star map spread out before him like a holographic projection, a smirk tugging at his lips. Although it's in the segmentum obscurus, it is indeed not within my territory. This counts as me getting the sun before the father, first Horus's Aureus, and now Abaddon's Hand of Darkness. Abaddon, your artifact is mine now. After sighing with a smile, he turned the dull, lusterless triangular pyramid in his hand. The price is not small. The cooldown time for the Dice of Prophecy is probably going to increase again, and for quite a long time. Nimrod whispered as he gently set the triangular pyramid down. He took a step and arrived at the fourth layer space. Nimrod sat down on the throne and extended his spirituality to touch the light spheres of Flamini, the Lord of the 6th Battle Group, known as the Winner, and William Wood, the Lord of the 12th Battle Group, the Marionettist. Through subtle connections, he transmitted the known information about Purgatory Star into the light spheres and ordered them to perform divination. The state of the Dice of Prophecy had already made him realize that obtaining the Hand of Darkness from Purgatory would not be easy. Nimrod then returned to the real world and, through a psychic link, commanded John, who was also a winner, to perform divination. In his cramped little home filled with crystal balls, tarot cards, and pendulums, the winner picked up parchment and a quill, scribbled rapidly, and then leaned against the bedside. The strong-brained cat's obsidian eyes, mirroring those of its soul-bonded master, grew blurry. In the illusory vision, gray-white rivers flowed across a blood-red land. The image shattered. Through the psychic link, Nimrod saw the revelation obtained by the winner. He frowned slightly, the information gained from the divination was sparse. A moment later, Nimrod returned to the Nation of Disorder, and extended his spirituality, receiving feedback from the prayers of Flamini and William. The winner glimpsed a crimson scarecrow wandering the blood-red land. The marionettist divined a monkey-shaped creature driving a flock of sheep. Nimrod's eyes flashed. The crimson scarecrow and the monkey-shaped flock guardian were the main ingredients for the potion of the Hanged Man Pathway Sequence 5, Shepherd. After a brief thought, he issued an order, mobilizing the first battle group, which consisted of many judges who had captured potion ingredients, and the 10th battle group, primarily focused on the Hanged Man Pathway, to head to Purgatory Star. Chapter 752, Promotion to Shepherd, Sudden Change. The black stormbird slowly landed on the blood-colored earth of Purgatory Star. Mahao, the company commander of the 3rd Company of the 1st Battle Group, stepped off the deck with the honor guard. Mahao was clad in the Saturn pattern Terminator prototype. He strode forward vigorously, the creaking of his armor regular and not at all harsh. The disciplinary knight felt that the armor enveloping his powerful body was lighter than the Mark III power armor worn by an arbiter. Mahao frowned deeply, gazing out towards the crimson grassland. The veteran, sheriff, immediately felt a pungent, foul, bloody odor wash over him as soon as he set foot here, with a viscous, sticky fog permeating the air. He stamped hard on the grassland, causing fragments of the crimson weeds to scatter. The veteran, sheriff's, eyes suddenly twitched as he looked toward the 10 o'clock direction. A 3-meter-tall crimson scarecrow rushed over, its straw body rippling in layers. Tranquilizer dart. Mahao recalled the Black Emperor's decree and issued the hunting order. 2 squads clad in Mark III power armor raised their tranquilizer guns, and the Nuceria darts shot out with a whoosh. PFFT PFFT PFFT. The darts flew into the crimson bodies, immediately getting stuck between the straw. The disciplinary knight's eyes narrowed. Golden light flared in his eyes as he stared intently at one of the crimson scarecrows. From the tips of the 2 darts, illusory, grayish-white shadows flowed out like liquid. Crimson Scarecrow possesses supernatural abilities. While contemplating, Mahao raised his left arm and aimed at a crimson scarecrow. The Melta-Snake cannon boomed, spitting out a brilliant beam of light that struck the crimson scarecrow. Sizzle. The scorching beam pierced directly through the crimson scarecrow and shot into the crimson grassland, blasting out a scorched, deep pit. The disciplinary knight stared at the crimson scarecrow and found that it had sustained no damage, the beam passed through the rippling grayish-white shadow as if the body lacked substance. The disciplinary knight raised his right arm, held up his palm toward the crimson scarecrow, and shouted loudly in the Dun language. Subject of discipline, Crimson Scarecrow. A light resembling the dawn instantly appeared on the surface of the disciplinary knight's body, and his power gauntlets, without activating the disintegration field, shimmered with a clear luster. Creak, creak. The rapidly running Crimson Scarecrow slowed down, its steps becoming sluggish, as if shackled by invisible fetters. The disciplinary knight strode forward and commanded in a deep voice, "Shadows are forbidden here." Grayish-white shadows rose up with a whoosh, like wisps of smoke. Mahao gave a solemn order to the judges, imprisoned. The silhouette of the disciplinary knight was grander and taller than his actual body. The members of the honor guard stepped forward without hesitation, turned sideways in unison, raised their right palms, and aimed at the crimson scarecrows. Extremely viscous, transparent liquid layered upon layer enveloped each crimson scarecrow. At the same moment, the shadow ascetics of the 10th battle group, hidden within the shadows of the grayish-white sheep, moved among tens of thousands of sheep, approaching the ape-like figures one by one. When they stopped, they would cease, hiding in shadows. The stealth field attached to the Mark II armor concealed their movements, conserving spiritual energy. Technology derived from the stealth warriors of Terra aided the shadow ascetics in approaching their targets. After reaching their respective ambush positions, they immediately raised the tranquilizer guns in their hands. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Darts broke through the air one after another, flying toward the ape-like creatures wielding whips while riding on the flocks of sheep. Bang bang bang. Over 100 flock tenders suddenly slipped off the grayish-white sheep they were riding, caught off guard. Screech. A flock tender with unusually pale gray skin let out a piercing cry. He swung his right arm, whipping a sheep into the air. Bang! The grayish-white sheep body in front of him melted like wax, transforming into pure, viscous flesh, which layered around him. 2 flying darts arrived, piercing the viscous flesh, immediately sinking into the mire. The flock tender crouched down and hugged the grayish-white sheep body. His body acted like a large mouth, stuffing the gray-white sheep into himself. The flock tender leapt up suddenly, his stomach bulging. Bang bang bang. Grayish-white lumps of flesh wrapped in scarlet blood splattered out, shooting toward the hazy shadows. A look of astonishment flashed in the eyes of the shadow ascetics. The abilities of the ape-like creatures reminded them of their lord, Ramsay. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Around the flock tender, massive grayish-white sheep bodies melted away in an instant. A crimson waterfall surged up, enveloping the flesh bombs in masses. Ramsay, the Rose Bishop, emerged from the shadows. He wore the exact same smile as Nimrod and pulled hard with both hands. Streams of blood water poured down, layering and binding the gray-white bodies of the flock tenders. 5 stellar hours later, Ramsay arrived at the Black Emperor's temporary operations base with the first batch of captured ape-like creatures. He carried an ape-like creature wrapped in layers of flesh to the main gate. The flesh of the biosystem psyker suddenly felt itchy, as if maggots were wriggling beneath his skin. Ramsay glanced at Isaac on the left side of the gate, then shifted his gaze to the members of the honor guard on the other side. The honor guard member bowed in salute. "Lord Ramsay, Father is waiting for you inside." He raised his hand and pressed the electric button, and a humming sound filled the air as cold mist permeated the area. Ramsay nodded to the honor guard member in acknowledgement and walked through the gate to stand before the Black Emperor. "My lord, here is the flock tender you requested." The Primarch raised a hand, and a psychic great hand reached out. The ape-like body fell into the palm, and amidst a rising black mist, the flock tender vanished into thin air. Nimrod's thoughts moved, and the space monkeys in the first layer of the Nation of Disorder immediately took action. He spoke in a deep voice and shouted to the doorway, "Isaac, go patrol outside for a circle. Return in 1 hour after covering a distance of 10 kilometers." The promotion ceremony for the Shepherd was very easy for Ryan Ramirez and other psychers, but there could be no untouchables nearby. "As you command, my lord." Isaac glanced into the great door, a flicker of curiosity crossing his eyes, then quickly walked out carrying his giant spear. A moment later, Nimrod flicked his wrist, and a bottle of grayish-white potion appeared out of thin air in his palm. He commanded in a deep voice, "Enter the Magnus 3rd level of the Telema state of mind." After your light body separates from your physical body, control the body and drink the potion. The promotion ceremony for the shepherd was the same as in his memory. He had to find a way to draw his soul out of his body, influence the body in that state, take the potion, and finally complete the return. Thank you for your gift. Ramsay happily took the potion from Nimrod's palm, glancing at the potion whose illusory, swollen face kept flashing. The biochemical pathway psyker skillfully ascended to the Magnus' third level of the Telema state of mind. He closed his eyes and freed his light body from his flesh. As the tide of flesh and blood surged, his connection with the material world gradually faded, and formless colors, nameless emotions, and baseless dimensions converged into a vortex. The light body soared up, and he looked down upon the entire operation base from the air. The red battle intent from the aftershocks of his honor guard members fighting, and the admiring white light gazing up at the Legion's banner, the banner of Vostonia. The golden pride of the honor guard members. The standard bearer Jurgil, holding high the banner of Vostonia, displayed a constant vigilant blue-purple, along with an upright golden-yellow pride. Ramsay gazed for a moment, then his mind moved, and following the Black Emperor's decree, he tilted his head back and drank the potion in his hand. As soon as the grayish-white liquid entered his mouth, the illusory face suddenly erupted, tearing Ramsay's soul apart like sharp blades. The biochemical psyker let out a piercing scream of agony. The howling echoed throughout the operation base, causing the psykers and the listeners to turn deathly pale, their temples throbbing painfully. The Order shadows vigilantly surveyed their surroundings, searching for the rustling sounds. Thelema mindset. A thunderous voice echoed within Ramsay's shattered soul. Regain your thoughts and return to your body. Ramsay instinctively obeyed the voice of Majesty, laboriously and clumsily ascending into the Telemaria First Realm. The speed was even slower than when he first mastered it. Purple-black agony rippled, isolated by a wall of shining will. Ramsay gathered his chaotic thoughts and controlled his light body to slowly descend toward his physical form. Thick darkness suddenly surged up, submerging the shining light. Claws shrouded in dense shadow appeared out of thin air, grasping for the light body. Huh! Nimrod's eyes flashed, and the abruptly rising black shadow extinguished the lights. The obsidian eyes of the Mentor of Disorder were filled with dense lines of rule in black and red. Ramsay is following my orders, his soul has begun to return to his body. Why has there been a sudden change? This situation has never occurred before. Ascend to the third level of the Telema state of mind. The Mentor of Disorder commanded in a deep voice, his expression grave as his mind worked rapidly to analyze. The biggest difference between Purgatory Star and the past is that this planet has the Hand of Darkness. An idea flashed in his mind. Purgatory Star has the main material for the Shepherd, the Crimson Scarecrow, and the Flock Tender, and Ramsay is currently promoting to Shepherd. Could the Hand of Darkness be a high-sequence characteristic or even the uniqueness of the Hanged Man pathway? This is possible. The Hand of Darkness possesses the ability to corrode. Nimrod remembered that during the Plague War, 10,000 years later, Abaddon gave the Hand of Darkness to Mortarion. Mortarion used the Hand of Darkness to replicate a large number of devices and deployed them across the 500 worlds of Ultramar. He then used the Hand of Darkness to control the replicated devices, unleashing the Plague Calamity. The authority over corruption and defilement held by the Hanged Man is similar to corrosion. His authority over darkness is also different from darkness. The darkness of the Hanged Man is the darkness that encompasses and devours everything, and the darkness that corrupts people's hearts. During promotion, the Beyander is most closely connected to the uniqueness. Ramsay is on Purgatory Star, promoting to Sequence 5 inches Shepherd, and the Hanged Man pathway is highly susceptible to inspiration and influence. The key is that the Hand of Darkness is an alien divine artifact with corrosive abilities, which indicates that he is naturally releasing power, similar to how the uniqueness of the Twilight Giant influences the Dusk Moon. While thinking, Nimrod immediately raised his left arm, and black mist appeared in his palm. The spirituality of the Mentor of Disorder surged out, pouring into the Hand of Order gauntlet. Prohibit, defilement, filth, dark, corrosion. Decree, mystery weakened, reality enhanced. Golden light shot up into the sky, piercing through the roof. The pillar of light was 500 meters high, and its radiance enveloped the entire base. The claws tearing at the light body exploded with a bang. Freed from the restraint, Ramsay settled his light body back into his physical form. The scattered soul fragments pieced themselves together and merged into the flesh. The newly promoted shepherd knelt on the ground, having narrowly escaped death. Praise the great power of my Lord, you saved my soul. Chapter 753. Abaddon, you gain and lose, so you might as well not gain it at all. Nimrod gazed at Ramsay, the newly promoted shepherd before him, and gave his command. After leaving Purgatory Star, you will go to Sonam 8 to herd wraiths and evil spirits. Upon hearing this, Ramsay immediately recalled the information that flooded his mind as his soul was torn apart. His core ability after becoming a shepherd was herding, to herd lambs for the gods. The souls to be herded include wraiths and evil spirits. Your will be done. Ramsay bowed in response. This is only a temporary transition. Nimrod pondered for a moment, then continued his instructions. Communicate with the royal court members within the warband, select those who still wish to fight alongside you after death, and enlist them into the honor guard. After their death, herd their souls. Every 100 years, replace the herded souls. A shepherd can herd a maximum of 7 souls. The number of wraiths and evil spirits they can command is far fewer than those of the death pathway. For a gatekeeper of the same sequence 5, the true combat power comes from Beyander souls. A shepherd can choose 3 Beyander abilities to solidify when herding each soul, and these cannot be changed afterward. By effectively combining 21 Beyander abilities, a shepherd is arguably the most comprehensive sequence 5, and in a perfectly matched scenario, can be considered the most powerful sequence. The Beyander abilities, recorded by scribes like Santiago Borgkamp are, after all, not as good as the original. Polymaths like Arsena Dunn, despite continuous observation and research, find it difficult to fully comprehend Beyander abilities, making perfect replication almost impossible. Prometheus like Tierney are even forbidden by Nimrod from stealing Beyander abilities. Only a shepherd can perfectly utilize Beyander abilities from other pathways. Even the Mentor of Disorder, a sequence 5 of the Black Emperor pathway before its evolution, would struggle to match the combat power of a shepherd with effectively matched Beyander abilities. After all, while a shepherd can only command 1 soul at a time and use its Beyander abilities, they can switch souls instantly. However, even a powerful shepherd of the same sequence still faces 2 problems. One is acquiring souls. No one willingly has their soul devoured, they will resist with all their might. Ramsay, as the lord of the 10th battle group, can acquire souls relatively easily. The original Order Shadows had about 23,000 members. Among them, royal court monks exceeded 5,000, and those not of the Hanged Man pathway, who possessed no Beyander abilities, numbered over 1,000. The former Faceless Ones now number about 38,000, with over 500 royal court monks not of the Hanged Man pathway. It wouldn't be difficult for Ramsay to persuade 7, or even 70, out of 1,500 people. The other problem to face is the suffering of the soul after being herded. Living within another's body is never a good experience, but living within the body of a chapter master who led them in life and fought alongside them is different. However, Nimrod will not allow them to be herded indefinitely. He will require the shepherds to replace their souls every 100 years, liberating the original souls. The voice of majesty echoed in Ramsay's mind, like thunder, making him shiver. He bowed his head in obedience. Your will be done. You have just suffered soul torment, go meditate and rest. Nimrod said with concern. Besides Ramsay suffering torment during his promotion to shepherd, Nimrod also considered that Hand of Darkness might have had some influence on Ramsay during his promotion. If he were to go with Ramsay, an anomaly might occur. The chill in Ramsay's body receded. He looked up at the Black Emperor's face, perfect as a marble sculpture. That was a transcendent aura that even a biopsycher, a veteran Rose Bishop, could never truly possess, no matter how much they adjusted. The Black Emperor's awe-inspiring nobility and majesty faded, and the Gene Father's concern was reflected in his body, in his soul. Ramsay's memories flashed back, recalling how his father rescued him from the tragic fate of being an experimental subject for the Andres people. My lord, your voice is a firm soul armor in the cold darkness. Your voice echoes deep within my soul, helping me overcome pain. I will remember your voice and concern, meditating to engrave them deep within my heart. After Ramsey retreated, Nimrod immediately stepped out of the operational base. Combining the Augur Matrix class master's report and the briefings from the 1st Battle Group and 10th Battle Group, he had confirmed the location of Hand of Darkness. A crimson land, with a black peak abruptly rising. Nimrod spread his golden wings and soared into the sky. The fierce winds buffeted his black armor, carrying a foul stench only a Primarch could perceive. On the ground, the judges of the 1st Battle Group, imprisoned, crimson scarecrows in amber-like objects, while the shadow ascetics of the 10th Battle Group silently approached the herd keepers, capturing the monkey-like creatures with anesthetic needles. Suddenly, a black mountain peak came into Nimrod's view. His obsidian eyes narrowed, focusing on the giant statue at the summit. The statue was about 10.38 meters tall, constructed from stone material similar to black basalt. Nimrod gazed down at the statue, and comparing it with the memories of the shaman Slaughter, he immediately recognized it as a depiction of the crone goddess Morai Heg. After Slaughter entered the Howling Banshee sect shrine, besides the statues of Morai Heg's daughters on both sides, he also saw the statue of the crone goddess standing in the center. Nimrod's gaze then fell on a peculiar hand of the statue. This hand should have been severed, symbolizing her sending her 2 daughters to shriek in the ear of her husband, Kyle Amentia Cain, forcing the god of combat to chop off her 5 fingers. Where it should have been empty was a pitch-black claw. As his gaze fell upon it, thoughts spontaneously arose in his mind. Destroying every world encountered, turning them into purgatories. Killing the Emperor, destroying the Imperium, trying to corrupt me. Nimrod curled his lip, instantly ascending to the 3rd level of the Telema state of mind. The chaotic thoughts in his mind burst and shattered. The jumbled thoughts were swept away. He flapped his wings and swooped down. Nimrod raised his right hand, reaching for the claw. Whoosh! His hand suddenly found nothing. The Primarch had actually missed. Nimrod flipped over, his falling body twisting. As he raised his hand again, black mist rose from his palm, grasping towards the claw. This time, he grasped the pitch-black claw. As the claw entered his hand, he felt a sticky, nauseating sensation, as if he had grabbed a mass of flesh. Nimrod's mind stirred. Whoosh! The pitch-black claw vanished into thin air. Nimrod spread his wings, standing suspended in midair. Guilliman, I've helped you so many times, this time counts too. Without Hand of Darkness, Mortarion would unleash a plague war, and your 500, well, your Ultramar's tribulations would be fewer. He thought of Guilliman, who, to resolve this threat, provided intelligence to the shaman Eldred Ulthrin and Avrain, the leader of the Death Army, ultimately leading to Avrain stealing Hand of Darkness and recovering the Aeldari artifact. Abaddon, you gain and lose, so you might as well not gain it at all. Beyond the veil, a pair of eyes gazed towards Purgatory Star. P.S. In the official novel, Dark Imperium, it describes a replication device created by Mortarion. The appearance of Hand of Darkness is based on Avrain's words in the official audio drama, Hand of Darkness. Neither the Harlequins nor the Farseers have been able to reclaim this ominous claw. Chapter 754, Changes Displeasing to Tzeentch. Within the Amatarium, atop the Rainbow Plateau, stands the Crystal Labyrinth. Every devil within this domain can feel the existence of the Crystal Labyrinth. Paths composed of various crystals are constantly shifting and changing every single instant. They crisscross, spanning throughout the domain of Tzeentch. Hidden passages built of lies and schemes permeate the territories of other gods, connecting the chaotic domains of strife together. Every bend, corner, and dead end is a whim of the Lord of Destiny. At the center of the labyrinth, in a place that cannot be found by those who have not fallen into madness, stands the majestic Impossible Fortress. The walls of the Impossible Fortress gush with every color of light in the spectrum, as well as hues unknown to the material universe. Colored lights intersect at some unknowable node, where countless threads are mixed together. He shifted his gaze from Magnus, whose eyes were changing from red to blue, and cast it toward Purgatory Star. Nimrod, the Hand of Darkness. A face that suddenly grew from his right shoulder repeated in a subtle tone, Nimrod, the Hand of Darkness. Abaddon, change, everything. The joyful tone came to an abrupt halt. As the face on the right shoulder burst like a bubble, a face that suddenly grew from the left leg continued to repeat, Abaddon, change, everything. No. A face growing from the left chest screamed in displeasure, no. Blackstone Fortress, Cadia, the great rift tears the galaxy apart. The face on the right waist repeated in a low tone, Blackstone Fortress, Cadia, the great rift tears the galaxy apart. Silence, wordless. Cadia, the Ascended, Lorgar, the Eye of Night. A thread of destiny before Tzeentch was enveloped in blue light. The large mouth at his waist let out a joyful sound. Cadia, the Ascended, Lorgar, the Eye of Night. 945. M30. Cadia, on the edge of the Eye of Terror, in Segmentum Obscurus. A world yet to be discovered by the Empire. The young girl Ingethel had an expression on her face that did not match her age. In her sleep, she seemed to be praying devoutly. With a head full of jet black hair and a slender, beautiful figure, several skulls hung from her belt. The cloak draped over her shoulders was made of tanned and cured human skin. Her cloak shimmered with the light brown hue of a spoiled peach, with coarse black threads stitching together the heavy leather. Pale pigment was smeared around her beautiful yet eerie purple eyes, depicting the emblems of the various Cadian tribes. She knelt on the ground with her head bowed low, her purple eyes shining as she listened to the voice of the true gods. Ingethel the Chosen, thou art the guide for the gods. Thy voice shall be my oracle. A giant figure abruptly emerged. In the dream, her adult self only reached up to the giant's waist. The giant held a scepter, wore gray armor, and was covered in scrolls and papers. From the giant's smooth head down to his jaw, his entire face was covered in dense, neat rows of text. Ingethel recognized the script. It was extremely similar to the script of Cadia. Born without a teacher, she understood these words instinctively, including the text on the giant's face. They expressed different meanings: prophecies of a bright future, reverent blessings, prayers for the divine power of the gods to assist. Lorgar Aurelian, a blessed name, the favored of the four true gods. Thou shalt guide him and enlighten him to discover the truth. When thy task is complete, the gods shall elevate thee. Thou art Ingethel the Ascended. Ingethel etched Lorgar's figure into her memory, a smile of pleasant surprise filling her face. I shall follow the will of the gods and guide thy favored one to discover the truth. A brilliant light suddenly surged. The young girl of the barbarian tribe received the revelation of the gods. She understood what the universe, the galaxy, interstellar travel, and star maps were. The Eye of Night shall belong to Lorgar, the beloved son of the gods. Thou shalt lead him to find what belongs to him, to go to Ounsworld and obtain his artifact. I follow thy oracle. Ingethel opened her eyes, her purple pupils full of a light of wisdom that did not match her age. She stood up and walked outside. Wherever she passed, dozens of ragged barbarians draped in strange leathers bowed their heads in unison. Ingethel walked calmly through the crowd to the cave entrance. The barbarians followed her footsteps and looked up at the sky with her. All their eyes shimmered with the same purple color as the turbulent sky. Ingethel raised her arms and looked toward the distant stars. Ounsworld. I am Ingethel the Chosen. I am the Ascended. The barbarians knelt together, shouting fanatically at the top of their lungs, Ingethel the Ascended. Their language was exactly the same as that of Colchis in the Typing Star territory, countless light years away. At the same moment Ingethel received her revelation, in the third layer of space within the Nation of Disorder. Nimrod looked scrutinizingly at the floating claw before him. He saw that the pitch-black claw from the outside world was enveloped by thick, dark shadows within the Nation of Disorder. A black mist rose in Nimrod's obsidian eyes. His gaze then penetrated the thick shadows, seeing the wriggling red threads and the pitch-black clusters of lines within. Nimrod stared at the faint black threads and the tenuous connection they had with the Hand of Darkness. The uniqueness of the Hanged Man pathway. It is not the Beander characteristic of a dark angel. Nimrod sighed with some regret. He also wanted to possess comprehensive abilities, but Shepherd could not satisfy his needs. While a uniqueness was good, it could not be used right now. Dark Angel would have been just right. The Hanged Man did not have authorities like the Red Priests, Sacrifice, or the Twilight Giants, Proxy. Nimrod could not currently rely on the Sephira to utilize this uniqueness. The authorities of the Hanged Man flashed through Nimrod's mind. Hanged Man is the true god who governs the domain of degeneracy, a collection of black shadows and wriggling flesh. His primary authorities: degeneracy, shadow, flesh. The Hanged Man has 5 heads and corresponding shadows, each possessing authority over the domains of shadow, darkness, degeneracy, filth, and mutation. He also contains the concepts and partial symbolism of sin-bearing and sacrifice. Subordinate authorities, filth, mutation. Partial authorities, darkness, sin-bearing, sacrifice. A dark angel can simultaneously release every soul, grazed, up to a maximum of 22. These souls completely obey the dark angel's commands and can fully utilize their own abilities, rather than being selected like a shepherd does. As a Primarch, Nimrod's combat power far exceeded the Sequence 5 level. Shepherd provided almost no combat boost for him, whereas Dark Angel could significantly enhance it. If the Hand of Darkness were the Sequence 1-foot Dark Angel, Nimrod could use it after associating with it, but the uniqueness was temporarily unusable. Well, at least the Hanged Man has also fallen into my hands. Counting Red Priest, Demoness, and Twilight Giant, I already possess 4 uniquenesses. After I advance to Sequence 4 and undergo a qualitative change, I should be able to use the Hanged Man and Demoness uniquenesses. For now, at least it can be used to control the Blackstone Fortress. P.S. Finished coding early today, posting early. For more thrilling fanfiction stories like this, check out my channel Fanfic Audiobook. Dive into epic adventures, mysterious realms, and legendary journeys brought to life through immersive storytelling. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing audiobooks.